Chapter 26. And he stole a decent telekinesis ability, but he still wasn't safe. I need to find a safe, hidden place to recover. Krolo bit his lower lip, forced himself upright, and staggered into another dark alley. Huff, 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 Uvogin followed behind Maki through the alleys. His suit had been shredded, and his face was flushed from exhaustion. Despite being a reinforcement type, he was carrying Phaeton, who had passed out from overusing his Nen, and Pakinota, who had injured her right leg. Uvogin himself was also severely wounded. It took sheer willpower not to collapse. Maki looked just as battered. Her long lace skirt had been torn off mid-thigh because it got in the way, and her hair was disheveled. Her left arm hung limp at her side, clearly broken. But she didn't stop to fix it. She could sense their pursuers behind them. She couldn't stop. She mustn't stop. Ding-ling-ling, the phone on the table rang. A hand lazily reached out and answered. Hello? I'm fine. How about you? Oh, you don't want contact for now. Got it. Click, the call ended quickly. Hey. That guy. The boy sneered sarcastically, closing his sea-blue eyes. Don't want me interfering? Krolo, you're not doing too well, are you? Forget it. I'll at least warn the others. The young man picked up the phone and dialed again. After a few seconds, a hoarse voice answered. Knight? Didn't we talk yesterday? What's up? Knight replied calmly, nothing urgent, thanks. Just that we ran into some trouble in District 1. It's best you lie low and don't let anyone know we're connected. A pause. Then a new voice picked up, Nobunaga. How bad is it? Do you need backup? No. Just monitor the last 3 districts, but switch to passive surveillance. Even if those puppets break formation, don't act. The priority is preserving our strength. I'm guessing Krolo is planning something big, Knight explained. After the call, Knight stood from the chair, changed into a sporty outfit and sneakers, and headed out. As he passed a mirror near the door, he turned to glance at the golden-haired, green-eyed face looking back, a face that looked nothing like his own. His eyes flickered. Remember, no one's in this room. Don't open the door unless it's me. Yes. A dull-looking man behind him responded mechanically. This was actually the day after the incident. When Knight had left earlier, Krolo hadn't been summoned yet. Being cautious, Knight had followed him into the mansion. No one was guarding against him, so he had changed his appearance in a bathroom, a simple disguise. There were plenty of blonde-haired, blue-eyed people around. As he exited, the sound of fighting had already erupted outside. Knowing something had gone wrong, Knight quickly subdued a minor leader he found while checking intel. Under cover of that identity, he mingled with the fleeing guests, offering subtle help. Once Uvogin and the others had escaped, he used his puppet to return to their temporary base to gather essential supplies. No one thought to search it in the chaos, and relocated to that man's apartment, Lepeng, to wait for any news of Krolo. It wasn't until noon the next day that Knight got a call. From Krolo's tone, he found a place to hide, but it seemed he was alone. So the others didn't escape with him. Or had they died? Knight frowned as he walked. Though his current body was only about 10 years old, due to this world's physiology, his growth was abnormal. When he'd first met Phaeton, he was just 1.5 meters tall. Now, he stood at 1.61 meters. He disguised himself as a handsome teen of around 14 to 15 and found a cafe near Houston's mansion. Ordering a milk tea, he sat and listened. Yesterday's attack had rocked District 1, one of Meteor Street's safe zones. Even though Houston's mansion was now heavily guarded, passers-by still cast glances, wondering who had dared to bomb the district mayor's home during a public banquet. Unbelievable. I heard they came from District 13. District 13? No surprise. That place is always like that. Is this it? Knight's eyes drifted toward the cafe's right-side exit, where a few diners were whispering. Judging by their expressions, they likely didn't know too much, but they were still talking openly, unlike those who understood the danger. Knight opened a mobile game on his phone, pretending to play while eavesdropping. "I heard those guys escaped," a man in yellow whispered. "No way." "Really?" said his friend. "Yeah, someone I know works in the mayor's mansion. They said the bodies weren't recovered." "Just the ones inside, right? The chief must have sent teams to hunt them down. Didn't they find them?" "Shh, you don't get it. They were strong. Half the banquet hall was blown up, several rooms destroyed. I heard that when I went to Armani's last night for a drink, there were bodyguards from the mansion dismembered right outside his place." "They were that strong?" "Someone even said the weapons store on North Street got hit. Nothing useful left." Knight sighed inwardly, paid, and stepped outside. About 50 meters from the mansion, he closed his eyes. He hadn't seen Krilo with Uvagin and the others during the escape. Was he captured or diverted? The others broke out through the main gate, so what path had Krilo taken? A mental map unfolded in Knight's mind: Maki, the suspected source of the dismemberment rumor, Armani's bar, the raided weapons shop. An escape route formed in his mind. He opened his eyes and sprinted. Hurry. If they were robbing a weapon shop, they were desperate. If any of them died, Krilo would be in even more danger. Seriously injured times phone times found. Maki had used the last of her nen to stitch up her and Pakinota's broken limbs before collapsing. Eyes closed, she meditated to restore a bit of aura and strength before another wave of pursuers arrived. "Uvagin, how are you?" Pakinota, likely the least injured among them, had fully recovered from a leg fracture. But her nen was ill-suited for combat. Uvagin sat cross-legged like a statue, back against the wall. He hadn't moved for 30 minutes. His abdomen no longer rose and fell as rapidly. When Pakinota spoke, he cracked open bloodshot eyes. "Humph. I want those bastards to come back. I'll rip them all apart, one by one." Pakinota's gaze dimmed. Uvagin's aura was still potent, but according to him, Chapter 27. Judging from the fact that he had to lean against the wall even while sitting, it would be difficult for Uvagin to survive another wave of pursuers. Cough, 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 Phaeton stirred in the corner. He had regained consciousness. After scanning the dim storage room, which looked like a junk warehouse, he rasped, "Pakinota, how long was I out?" "It's been more than a day, Phaeton." "Your injuries?" Pakinota hesitated. Phaeton wasn't exactly easy to deal with, especially when it came to topics like his condition or his height. "Shut up," Phaeton snapped. If not for the dim light, Pakinota would have seen the intense cruelty in his eyes, and a face red with fury. "You still have your phone?" "Huh?" Pakinota blinked. She hadn't expected him to ask that, especially not now, but she still answered, "Only mine's still working." Uvagin liked tearing off his clothes during battle, so his phone was lost. Phaeton had used too much nen, his outfit had burned up, along with his phone. Maki's device had been smashed. Only Pakinota's phone had survived, as she kept it on her. "Give it to me," Phaeton said. "Who are you calling? Krilo?" Pakinota asked as she approached. Phaeton could barely move. Ding ling ling, before she could hand over the phone, a call came in. She glanced at the screen. "It's Krilo." She answered. "Krilo, this is Pakinota." "How are you all, Pakinota?" "It's bad," she admitted. "Right now, I'm the only one who can still fight. The rest are exhausted." A long silence followed. "Is your current location secure?" "It's fairly hidden," Pakinota replied. "But not safe. The storage shed was remote, but anyone could stumble across it." "Tell me where you are. I'll come after dark." "Okay, it's Pakinoda recited a long address. Hearing Krillow's steady voice helped ease her nerves a bit. And one more thing, Krillow added. Don't contact the knight. What? Pakinoda blurted. Was the knight compromised? He had once sought to replace Krillow, but he hadn't done anything suspicious in recent months. Still, it was Krillow's order. Pakinoda composed herself and answered, understood. Click, the call ended. What did Krillow say? Maki asked, her eyes opening. He told us to stay put, he'll come after sunset. Pakinoda peeked outside through a crack in the door. Should be about 4 or 5 hours. We can rest, then. Give me the phone. Phaeton growled. But Krillow said not to contact the knight. Pakinoda hesitated. Is Krillow saying he's a traitor? Uvogin barked. Impossible. But the knight didn't show during the fight, Pakinoda pointed out. Shut up and give me the phone. Phaeton snarled. No. I won't go against Krillow's orders, Pakinoda said firmly. She was the only one still mobile, so the stalemate held, though she could feel Phaeton's bloodlust rising. Quiet, Maki snapped. Someone's coming. Silence fell instantly. They were hiding in a shed behind a small home. From within, they heard the commotion of someone forcing their way into the front yard. Magna, have you seen anyone suspicious around here? A rough voice barked. If so, speak up or you'll regret it. They're searching for us, Pakinoda realized. A woman retorted, Tom, just because you work for the district chief's butler doesn't mean you can bully me. Sounds of scuffling followed, furniture overturning, a scream, and angry shouts. Come in here. Let me kill you. Uvogin thought grimly. Everyone held their breath. Tom, get out. No one's here. The woman shrieked. Humph, don't think I believe you. We're moving to the next house. The intruders left. Safe, Maki thought. But then, tap tap tap, soft footsteps approached. They stopped right outside. The group tensed again. Whoever stood outside had potent nen. Hey, it's safe now. They won't search twice, said a familiar voice. It's the knight. Phaeton's eyes lit up. No, don't go, Pakinoda said quickly. No danger, Pakinoda, Maki said calmly. Open the door. We need food and medicine. Agreeing with Maki's judgment, Pakinoda opened the door and helped her outside. There, they saw a blonde, blue-eyed teenager. Instantly alert again, Pakinoda backed off. Relax. He's the knight, Maki said. She had seen his disguises before. Wow, you're really a mess. The knight stepped inside, lifted Phaeton carefully, carried him in, then returned to drag Uvogin to the main room. I brought food, bandages, antiseptics. Even chocolate. Honestly, you all look horrible. Lucky no one died, or I'd have had a real headache. He unpacked while talking non-stop. Shut up, Phaeton snapped. Hey, if you've got the strength to yell, you can save your breath, the knight retorted, continuing to chatter as he worked. Middle stage? Times Krillow arrives times the knight's plan. Once everyone's wounds were treated, the knight wiped sweat from his brow. All right, just rest and you'll recover. He suddenly spotted the empty coffee table, and the pile of empty wrappers. Uvogin. Did you eat everything? What about the others? Uvogin shoved the last bit of bread into his mouth. You didn't bring enough. I'm still hungry. He looked at the knight. Got any more? The knight collapsed dramatically. Fine. I'll go buy more. Anyone need anything else? Clothes, Maki said coldly. Her skirt was in tatters. Got it. Oh, Phaeton, I found your umbrella yesterday, I'll bring it later. The knight smiled. Phaeton snorted in response. I'll be back in an hour, the knight said. Then he looked pointedly at Pakinota, his tone serious. Pakinota, no matter what. Chapter 28. Believe it or not, you're responsible for keeping them alive until this is over. Everything else can wait. With that, the figure of the knight vanished from the house. Pakinota, I think the knight's a good guy. Why don't you trust him? Uvogin blurted out the moment the knight left. He was never good at hiding his thoughts. Pakinota bit her lip, silent for a few minutes before replying, Kryllo's instincts are usually right. And don't you think it's strange? He's only been with us a few months, yet everyone trusts him. Trust didn't come easily in Meteor Street. The knight was clever, unpredictable, and shrewd, but somehow, he had gained the confidence of many. That alone was worth questioning. I don't see any problem with him, said Uvogin, acting purely on gut instinct. He's never hurt or betrayed us, Maki added. She trusted her intuition. Humph, Phaeton snorted coldly. But even he had to admit, if the knight wanted them dead, it would have been easy. So Pakinota looked skyward, torn between trusting Kryllo's judgment and the sentiments of her companions. It was a difficult choice. 5 minutes before the hour, the knight returned carrying a large bag of supplies. He dumped a load of bread, milk, chocolate, and other high-calorie rations on the table, handed Maki the clothes she requested, and then turned to Pakinota. I got you a change of clothes too. Dresses aren't practical right now. Give it here, Phaeton snapped, eyes flaring as he reached for his umbrella. Here, the knight said, handing it over. Then casually, any news from Kryllo? He called me around noon but didn't say where he was. Pakinota eyed him warily. Why do you want to know? The knight raised his eyebrows. Can't I ask? He's probably injured. I saw our wanted posters hanging everywhere. The bounty's huge. Even if he knows District 1's layout, there aren't many places left for him to hide. He glanced toward the mind-controlled woman still standing like a statue in the doorway. If Kryllo caused more deaths here, it would be hard to cover up. Kryllo called. He said he'll come after nightfall, Maki replied. 3 hours then. The knight nodded. I'll stay here until then. You all should meditate and recover your nen. He pulled his laptop from his backpack, the one he always used. In a small courtyard on the outskirts of District 1 Center, only one upstairs room was lit. The rest of the house lay in total darkness. But no one would have guessed that everyone was resting on the first floor. Suddenly, in the silence of night, there came the faint flutter of clothing against wind, then nothing. Maki stirred from her meditation. Kryllo is here. Everyone all right? Kryllo entered as her voice faded. The dark didn't affect an end-user's sight. He quickly scanned the room, locking eyes with each of them, including the knight, whose presence surprised him. Kryllo, your injuries? Pakinota asked. His blue t-shirt and jeans were stained at the shoulders, abdomen, and thighs. Just flesh wounds. Nothing serious. Kryllo smiled, making Pakinota blush slightly. Maki stepped forward to check. Your wounds need rebandaging. They're inflamed. She handed him some antibiotics. Thanks. Kryllo accepted them. His eyes lingered on Phaeton and Uvogin, who had recovered considerably, then moved to the knight. Did you contact Nobunaga and the others? I asked them to stay alert, the knight replied. Good. Kryllo nodded. I miscalculated. I didn't think the Council of Elders would respond so aggressively to our movements. Humph. They're not as invincible as they think. He turned to the knight. So, what now? The knight, unfazed by Kryllo's intense gaze, smiled. Depends on your goal, Kryllo. You have 3 paths. 1. Strike back at the Council immediately. 2. Retreat to District 13 and recover. Or 3. Flee Meteor Street entirely. Of course it's the first, Kryllo said, eyes narrowing with a murderous gleam. You're interested in that too, aren't you? Then tell me your plan. The knight opened his laptop. I'll need some intel first. What's your relationship with Elder Race, and who was chasing you? Krollo explained everything. The knight took notes. After some thought, he said, if we fight head-on, we'll suffer. Our best option is infiltration. You have a way to infiltrate? Krollo asked. Only a 50% chance, the knight admitted. Let me tell you about Omandi. Male, 37. Son of Sito, second in command of the council. Likes guns and children, especially twins. His wife, daughter of Vivian, the council's fourth seat, died last year. He has influence and often brings pets in and out. You mean? Krollo's eyes narrowed. Phaeton looked grim, he'd seen this scenario before. Exactly, the knight continued. Next is Cassywell, a trafficker from District 1. He sells humans and organs, mostly to elders. His subordinate, Miga, transports the goods. He's tall, bad-tempered. He glanced at Uvogin. Krollo understood. He covered his mouth and thought, then nodded. It'll take time to prepare. Knight, tell Nobunaga and the others to head here quietly. We'll also spread false leads to make it seem like we fled. I have the patience for a long game. Execute times, kill times, prepare for the end. What's up with Krollo? Didn't Pakanoda say he doubted the knight? Uvogin, making wild gestures. I don't know anymore. Pakanoda, confused. Damn it. Krollo actually went along with that bastard's plan. I'll kill him later. Phaeton, seething. Calm down, you're all being obvious. Maki, trying to stay out of it. Hey. Why are you moving so slow? Uvogin, you're supposed to be a trafficker, act aggressive. The knight barked. At his words, everyone straightened up. Uvogin shoved a few costumed kids forward and stalked ahead. The story had started 2 days earlier. When the knight proposed the plan, Krollo accepted without hesitation. He tasked the knight with summoning their remaining allies from District 13 and sent Uvogin to rehearse his role. It was tough work, especially for a reinforcement type impersonating someone he didn't know. Knight, how can you guarantee this plan will succeed? Chapter 29. Won't they notice it's the real Miga? Krollo asked as he watched the knight directing Uvogin's performance. That guy. The knight nonchalantly scratched his ear. Right after I left Houston's mansion, I saw him trying to kidnap a child. So I killed him. Of course, he had also checked Miga's background. So the skeleton of this plan was formed back then. A smile tugged at Krollo's lips, though his eyes sharpened with vigilance. Eventually, when Finks, Nobunaga, and Franklin arrived in District 1, without Shouty, Krollo launched the counterattack. Maki and Phaeton, both with blue hair, were disguised as twins, with a cold, diminutive aesthetic. The knight refined their look, making them hauntingly attractive. Pakanoda, still blonde, was thoroughly made up. Krollo himself disguised as a brown-haired boy, his acting skills needed no coaching. The knight also changed into civilian clothing. Phaeton, how do you explain these wounds? Phaeton, a reluctant participant, pointed at his bruises. His dark golden eyes flashed his meaning: wounded commodities wouldn't be brought to high-end buyers. The knight raised an eyebrow and smirked. You don't get it. Psychos tend to like a bit of rough training. Boom. Phaeton's face flushed. Not from embarrassment, but fury. I'm gonna kill you. He brandished his umbrella and gave chase. Krollo frowned briefly, but dismissed it. Successful plan, next stage begins. After Phaeton dispatched Ormandy, the knight noted that this act was more than revenge, it was a declaration. A river of blood flowed from the Senate entrance to the hall. Everywhere they passed, corpses fell. Krollo shot him a composed, gentlemanly smile. But standing amid the carnage, that smile appeared all the more terrifying to anyone watching. You don't realize this is the Council of Elders? A tall, golden-haired elder squawked in terror. His legs gave way, despite the weight of the council behind him. You insolent, prepare to. Swish. A phantom thin blade flashed. His head twisted into unnatural angles before his body hit the floor. Finks, calm, said, he's too verbose. Krollo closed his eyes, then opened them, huge, obsidian black and feral. Go massacre them. Only the important ones live. Don't leave anyone else. The group answered, yes. The assault took under 4 hours. Krollo timed it perfectly. Only 5 of 8 permanent council seats were present, just 2 senior elders. Many bodyguards hadn't awakened Nen or had unimpressive power. With a surprise infiltration, they wiped them out swiftly. In a corner reception room, bound bodies lay helpless as Pakinota scanned their memories. Krollo, this one's powerful. Want him? Pakinota called in surprise after one scan. The knight, seated nearby, pricked up his ears, clearly intrigued. Krollo fixed him with a look, then turned to Pakinota. What's the ability? Blooming Alice. It manifests a red marigold. Wear it on your chest, it drastically lowers others' alertness. I haven't found usage limits yet. Interesting. Krollo strode forward, eyes laced with something predatory. Let me see it in action, or let Phaeton test you? He looked pointedly at the blood-darkened Phaeton. Half an hour later, Krollo nodded in satisfaction. The user showed the skill, the victim was left battered and unrecognizable. Spare his life, Krollo ordered, eyes flicking meaningfully toward the knight. Is this Krollo's real ability? The knight thought of the bloody book he'd glimpsed. It suggested Krollo could steal and wield others' abilities. A strategic, operationalized trait-type power, matching the knight's own kind mind tricks. Krollo, did you get it? Uvogin asked. Everyone knew Krollo had hinted he was after something in the council's vault. Yes. Krollo smiled faintly. Now we eliminate all unstable variables. So what's next? The knight asked, narrowing his gaze. Aftermath times cooperation or compromise terms times relief. Krollo wasn't arrogant. After breaching the Senate and acquiring his prize, he had to consider the fallout. Every elder seat tied to a powerful family, none to be crossed. But within those families, internal strife ran deeper than council politics. So Krollo crafted a mitigation plan, but it required complete cooperation from all Knight-controlled network agents who possessed relationship mind maps. Chapter 30. Mr. Chelsea, I hear your cousin covets your seat. If you die, he'll take over, how convenient. But we don't want a Senate member who'll stir up trouble. A power-hungry counselor quietly struck a deal with Krollo. Mr. Gaddafi? You don't need to know me. Just know I can fulfill your ambitions. A win-win contract. Deal. Came the response via phone. This was how Krollo neutralized stubborn targets, bolster their rivals instead. Please don't kill me, I'll do anything. Some were cowed without effort. The knight shrugged, observing that even in Meteor Street, many cherished their lives too dearly. In the aftermath of the riots at Houston's mansion and the Senate attack, arrogance was followed by terror. During the tense calm, the council's families formed a silent pact, granting Krollo time to consolidate his power. Few days later, the dust settled. Mr. Krollo, your strength now promises more cooperation with the Senate, said Manif, top leader of the Senate Council, eyeing Krollo over smoking gunpowder but speaking calmly. Of course. We've always respected the Council. We welcome continued cooperation, replied Krollo. The knight sensed Krollo had prepared for this exact moment. But Krollo's next words triggered tension. Since my partner killed a high-ranking member, we may face retaliation from those present. Manif, would you allow me to preemptively deal with anyone who plots against us? Murderous intent radiated from him. Vivian, fourth seat of the council, stared in horror and interjected. "Oh, Mr. Krilo, I won't avenge the man who wed my daughter yet failed her. Actually, I wish her to escape that marriage," she emphasized. "My only daughter, her bottom line." Krilo smiled wryly. "I see. An unworthy groom." His gaze shifted to Sito, who glowered at him, but he addressed Manif, signaling the diplomacy. Manif coughed lightly. "Personal issues are inappropriate here." She subtly undercut Sito, whose family lost influence after Ormandy's death. Krilo nodded, stepping back. "Then no trouble for Manif. My companions and I will take our leave." He paused, turning to Race, the elder who trapped him. "Race, perhaps we should speak later. I have questions about my family." Race remained silent. Had he misjudged this boy? He now saw Krilo's true potential: calm, patient, wise, yet ruthlessly unyielding. Once provoked, his vengeance would be unstoppable. The knight rose quietly, feeling the Senate had lingered too long. Though they'd brokered peace with most of the council, Sito and Houston couldn't be easily forgiven, or survived. Still, subtle upheaval remained. His eyes met someone familiar, but the person quickly looked away. "So you no longer recognize me?" the knight thought. Sentiment is weakness. Without emotional ties, I'm invincible, but also alone. He resolved, if he must abandon Krilo, at least do so proudly. Krilo noticed his distraction. "Knight, you seem distant. What's on your mind?" He glanced at the council elders. "No one," the knight replied, then met Krilo's eyes with a decisive smile. Krilo paused. He respected the answer. A guard without attachment was far more reliable. But unmoved loyalty is also reward enough. His eyes flickered with both admiration and wariness. Spider times team formation times rules. Krilo spoke from a raised platform, flat and commanding. "I am the brain, we are the legs. The legs obey, but organization isn't about life or death. If the brain falls, another can take its place. But limbs without the brain are just corpses. So, my orders are supreme, but my life is not. We survive as a whole. Never forget that." Below stood Uvagin, Nobunaga, Phaeton, Maki, Finks, Pakinota, and the knight, all solemnly listening. The knight watched Krilo bathed in backlight. That boy, a born leader. He studied each individual: robust Uvagin, fierce Phaeton, volatile yet held together by Krilo's influence. Krilo understood each, something the knight couldn't replicate. He didn't trust others, wouldn't ever. He could support Krilo's vision, but not fully entrust his back to them. "So, Krilo, I see your design. But I need time to trust." With months passed since that last council meeting, it was now 1986. One morning, Krilo stood before them. "Today, we form the Phantom Troop. 13 members, spiral spiders from Meteor Street's darkest corners. 1 head, 12 legs. Chapter 31 was missing. So, Chapter 32-. If you can't solve it yourself, then..." He lowered his head, a dark shadow under his golden hair, and everyone couldn't help but shudder. The knight usually treats people very well and always remembers the needs of all his companions in the brigade. Even if Phaeton, who has a bad temper and a strange personality, gets angry, it only leads to a minor scuffle, and the others remain very respectful toward him. But although he always smiles, he can become merciless when dealing with troublemakers. "Okay, knight, let's stop here." Krilo spoke up, breaking the eerie atmosphere. Over the past 2 years, his members had caused countless troubles. Others might not have kept track, but Krilo, as leader, had, and most of those troubles were resolved by the knight. The author's note suggested those incidents rarely required Krilo's direct intervention. The knight raised his smiling face again, laughed, then fell silent. Krilo turned his head in satisfaction. Over 2 years, he and the knight had developed a tacit understanding, One often played the scoundrel and the other the paragon to discipline unruly troop members. The longer Krilo worked with him, the more he realized how indispensable such a clever assistant was, though that layer of hidden defense still sometimes frustrated him. "That's all for today, let's disband," he finally said, then headed back to his room. The knight sat on the roof, staring at the perpetually gray sky of Meteor Street. At night, such a sky isn't exactly picturesque, but tonight, he felt a spark of excitement, despite the lack of stars. After years of aesthetic fatigue in this garbage-strewn, crime-ridden locale, he longed for something new. So, what would be his first move once he stepped outside? He thought carefully. I am the dividing line. To leave Meteor Street, where no satellite signal reaches due to magnetic interference, you must cross the vast desert. Of course, his group could use the Elder's airship instead. Over the past 2 years, the brigade had maintained good relations with the Elder's Council, at least the top brass had, helping them suppress radicals and even giving occasional counsel. So borrowing an airship posed no issue, and, in fact, the council was relieved to see the brigade depart Meteor Street. The airship flew them to the nearest town before returning. Except for Krilo, calm, or feigning calm, even the knight, recalling memories from his past life, couldn't help but survey everything. He was gathering intelligence, after all. Differences between worlds abounded, unfamiliar clothing on the streets, people with brightly dyed hair, and everything from geography and climate to customs, accents, and prices felt new. As the troop's designated intelligence officer, he needed to learn it all. Let's disband here, Krilo said. If any missions come up, the knight will inform you. You're free until then. But one thing, remember the purpose of the brigade, collect everything you can. The knight's eyes flickered and he asked, Captain, won't you assign 1 or 2 people to accompany you? Krilo was known for sudden ideas. Once he became interested, he'd recruit others to help. If no one stepped forward, he'd first ask the knight, the most rigorous and careful. Without hesitation, Krilo replied, since you mentioned it, go ahead and organize it. The knight thought for a moment. Okay, divide the brigade into 6 teams. They'll rotate on assignment to your side every 3 months. For this quarter, Maki and Hawkins will stay with you, and I'll schedule the next rotation. The knight didn't believe in permanent roles. They were a team, and trust was vital, but human motives could shift. The knight remained committed to the brigade and to doing his utmost while on duty. Krilo nodded in agreement. All right, disperse for now. I'll scout a suitable base for the time being. If anything comes up, you're free to leave. All right, goodbye, Captain. The members had been ready to go for a while and vanished as soon as they were dismissed. The knight waved to Krilo, preparing to step off. Knight, where are you heading? Krilo looked at him intently. Why does that feel odd? The knight hesitated, but smoothly answered, I'll get a hunter's license. It's essential for gathering intelligence. Many sites require hunter registration. Oh, really? Krilo smiled. Then go ahead. How strange. The knight felt puzzled, nodded, and turned away. Travel times preparation times second ability. Hunter, a profession and a class. If an anonymous person earns a hunter license, even regimes, elites, or criminals will respect them, and their fate can change overnight. Hunters enjoy free access to computer networks, 95% public facilities, bank financing comparable to first-tier companies, entry into 90% of state-restricted countries, and access to most off-limits zones. These benefits matter greatly for a knight obtaining a hunter license, so long as he conceals his true identity during the exam. The Phantom Troop is, by design, wanted. The knight knows that with their personalities, they can't just stroll around outside. Even Krilo, who can masquerade as an innocent boy, is colder and more ruthless than anyone. He endures more, maintains a graceful mask. And when the goal is met, often leaves no witnesses. In Meteor Street, they can make a scene, but outside? Based on current intelligence, only a few organizations rival the troupe. Therefore, a new identity is crucial. The knight dislikes being on permanent alert, though accustomed, he hates it all the same. Maintaining his true form before the troupe while adopting other personas outside makes sense. That night, the knight checked into a hotel and logged onto the internet to extract the Hunter exam registration schedule. "Oh, 2 months until registration opens," he murmured. The exam itself was 3 months away. Plenty of time, he sighed and began researching relevant information before sleep. He wouldn't rush registration, he needed the right identity first. The next day, the knight boarded a tour bus bound for a remote town, Sicily. Sicily lies nearest the Sea of Trees in the Republic of Savali. The Sea of Trees is the Canaan forest, frequented by adventurers. Its unique feature is a species of small-leaved banyan tree called the giant tree. Legend says there was once one original banyan whose roots spread to form the forest, though few have seen that mythical tree. Because danger is low and no legendary beasts roam, the Sea of Trees has become a tourist destination with scattered villages nearby. Though close by, Sicily remains sparsely populated due to water and power scarcity. Today, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed teenage boy arrived in Sicily. It was the knight, sporting makeup to mask his face. Though less refined than larger towns, Sicily attracts tourists indifferent to luxury, so the knight easily found a hotel and paid for a month's stay. "I've never had a guest stay this long," said the innkeeper. "Hey hunters! Time for your cult-required mandatory break." Fun fact: some of the earliest HXH drafts had gone as a teenager. But Togashi decided making him 12 would emphasize his innocence and naivety. Now let's keep going. Chapter 33-. A chubby middle-aged man said so. "Well, I'm using my vacation time to travel. I heard there's the world's largest banyan tree in the Sea of Trees, but I'm afraid a month won't be enough to find it," the knight said with a smile, giving his fabricated reason. "No, there's no such banyan tree. I've run this hotel for over 10 years and never heard of anyone seeing it. Guest, although the Sea of Trees is relatively safe, there are still wild animals." He looked at the knight with concern, worried the teenager wouldn't be able to handle it alone. "People out here are really too naive." A sarcastic gleam flashed through the knight's eyes as he laughed. "Don't worry about me, I've studied martial arts for 2 years. He then demonstrated a few moves. Sigh. Young folks these days are far too confident. The innkeeper looked at the smug teenager and thought so but held back from voicing it. So, when the knight got up the next day to head out, the innkeeper called over a young man, about 25 years old, sturdy, honest, and resembling him, and said to the knight, "It's your first time in the Sea of Trees, so it's only natural you wouldn't know the paths. This is my son Dillier, he often guides guests. Let him accompany and assist you." The knight's eyes lit up, then he smiled. "All right then, brother Dillier, I'll be relying on you along the way." "Ah, don't mention it." Dillier Momo shook his head bashfully, a slight flush rising on his bronze-toned face. The knight was naturally sociable. In both his past life as a businessman and now as an intelligence officer of the brigade, gathering information through casual conversation had become second nature. And now, he already had a specific goal in mind. They didn't move fast through the forest, but Dillier still ended the day exhausted. He wasn't a talker, but the knight peppered him with endless questions. "Dillier, have you seen any hunters exploring the Canaan forest? Dillier, have you ever wanted to visit a big city? Dillier, do you? Dillier, my son, did you walk a lot today?" That guest didn't look tired at all. The innkeeper asked curiously, seeing his son slumped in a chair upon return. "Father, please. Stop asking, all right?" Dillier felt like his lips had gone numb from talking too much. Unable to get an answer from his son, the innkeeper approached the knight, who was eating in the dining hall, and asked indirectly, "Sir, did you enjoy the trip today? Did you see the waterfall in the forest?" In the Canaan forest, a grand waterfall acts as a landmark. Only after crossing the lake formed by the waterfall can one enter the forest's core. "There's a waterfall in the Canaan forest," replied the knight, surprised. The innkeeper didn't realize the knight had moved at half a normal tourist's pace just to keep asking questions. The innkeeper turned around silently. Forget it, if he wasn't tired, it didn't explain why Dillier was so drained. For 3 days, the knight had Dillier guide him through the Canaan forest. Then he spent a few days in his room, and a few days wandering town. Just like that, a month passed quickly. "You're leaving?" the innkeeper asked the knight, who was packing up local specialties in an organized manner. "Yes, I'm heading back. Are there any unpaid bills?" the knight asked with a smile. The innkeeper waved his hands. No, it's all covered. I'll go prepare the rest." The knight quickly said, "No need, uncle. That money's a thank you for Dillier, he helped me a lot this past month. Also, I've contacted a friend to pick me up. I'd like Dillier to help carry my things to Kaidi town, where my friend will meet me." "No problem, I'll call him right now." The innkeeper agreed cheerfully, unaware of the flash of cruelty that passed through the knight's eyes. The worthless local specialties, in the spider's eyes, were cast aside, and the knight was sent off. The real Dillier lay lifeless on the ground. The knight calmly dug a pit for the goods and, with a flick of his hand, summoned a large black velvet cloth from between his fingers. Knight's specialty skill, David's magic cloth. Effect: imitates anyone's appearance, age, blood type, and even Nen type, completely assuming their identity. Limitations: maximum imitation time is 1 month, repeat transformations allowed. Must obtain a piece of the target's body, for example, hair, blood. Can imitate the Nen of a target whose aura output is 50% less than the user, mimicked power is only 80%. During imitation, original Nen abilities are restricted. Restrictions depend on category distance. For example, if Knight is manipulation and imitates enhancement, his puppet chip ability can only control ordinary people. A second later, another Dillier appeared. Yes, the Knight would take the Hunter exam as Dillier, a real, verifiable identity, not a fabricated one vulnerable to exposure. Omitted exam times Seer City times Kralo's goal. Countless travelers visit the Sea of Trees each year. The residents of small-town Sicily have grown used to tourists. Even a peculiar-looking visitor might only spark gossip for a day or two. But the news that Dillier, son of the Volo family and an innkeeper's heir, intended to take the Hunter exam? That stunned everyone. Dillier, think about it again. We're just ordinary folk. The innkeeper felt like he'd aged 10 years in just a few days. His usually obedient son wanted to attempt the Hunter license exam. Everyone said it was brutal. Hunters were an elite class, weren't they? I've thought it through, father. All hunters were ordinary before. That guest who hired me last week, he passed the Hunter exam last year. He said I had potential, said the kind and honest Dillier. The innkeeper had no response. This was the nth time he tried to dissuade Dillier, but it was useless. He worried, yes, but he also felt a faint sense of pride. His son was chasing his own path. 2 days before the transformation expired, the innkeeper finally gave his blessing. Dillier packed and set off. I am the dividing line after verification. At noon, the largest fast food chain in central Seer City bustled with people. A blond boy around 11 or 12 sat near a window. His table was piled with burgers, cola, and wings. It was the Knight, back in his true form. Half a month earlier, he passed the Hunter exam under the identity of Dillier. The moment he received his license, the Knight spent nearly 3 sleepless days scouring Hunter-exclusive websites for intelligence he couldn't previously access. He completed a few small tasks to get used to the Hunter Association's systems and met several personnel who might be useful in future dealings. Then he received a call from Krilo. In the few months since the brigade split up, the Knight saw news online about their crimes. The female members fared better, but the men, best not to speak of them. Nearly every one of them was wanted for murder and theft. That loudmouth Yvagan even blurted out Phantom Troop during one job, which implicated even the Knight, who hadn't killed anyone, innocent. Currently, the Phantom Troop had only just come into public view. There was no comprehensive data on their numbers or traits, and the bounty level was only B class. He hadn't found Krilo's whereabouts. That man could vanish if he wanted to. But the Knight strongly suspected some odd, unsolved heists bore his signature. Chapter 34. The day before yesterday, Krilo called him and asked him to come to Seer City, but didn't specify the reason. Ring, ring, ring. His phone rang. The Knight took it from his bag and answered, "Hello, Captain. I'll be waiting for you at Star Square. I'll be right over." It was Krilo's charming voice. There seemed to be a crowd where he was. The Knight could hear background noise and a delicate woman's voice. "Okay, I'll be there right away," the Knight replied. Over the past 2 years of working together, he had gradually placed himself in the role of Krilo's subordinate. Unless Krilo was absent or hinted otherwise, the Knight refrained from expressing personal opinions. This approach was beneficial to both Krilo and the Phantom Troop. If two decision-makers existed in the group, it would inevitably lead to division. And if that happened, the Knight and Krilo would be forced into a life-or-death rivalry. The call ended. The Knight put away his phone, quickly finished his meal, wiped his mouth, and left, startling those nearby. How could a child eat so much? They didn't realize that a NEN user like the Knight required over 10 times the calories of a normal person. Even with an extra portion, he'd have eaten it all. Star Square was the most bustling commercial district in Seer City, a city that never slept. It hosted luxury malls, casinos, auction houses, underground black markets, and illegal arenas, though the latter two were unknown to ordinary citizens. It took the Knight less than 5 minutes to reach the square from the fast food place. Being a holiday, the area was packed. Street vendors hawked knockoffs and smuggled goods in dim corners, immediately pouncing on any promising customer. Spotting Krilo in a crowd wasn't hard. That boy had an unmistakable aura, those around him were subconsciously drawn in. For women, especially young girls experiencing first love, it was a charm more potent than opium. Yes, the Knight saw Krilo. Dressed casually, a bandage loosely covered the cross-shaped tattoo on his forehead, hidden beneath his drooping hair. A gentle, cheerful smile lit his face, betraying nothing of the deep indifference and cruelty buried within. Standing beside him was a noble girl, about 14 or 15, with light blue hair, porcelain skin, bright eyes, and a flawless smile. She wore a refined, girlish dress and exuded budding elegance. The Knight, however, had little interest. His taste ran toward mature women, a reflection of his past life and varied experiences. Too much nonsense. A few bulky men in black flanked the girl like bodyguards, presumably her attendants. Phaeton and Finks, who should have been on rotation with Krilo, were nowhere in sight. Krilo likely dismissed them. Fishing required patience, and those two didn't have it. Was that why he summoned the Knight? No doubt the girl was somehow tied to Krilo's latest scheme. He wouldn't flatter a girl with no value. As a line of sight brushed his face, the Knight knew Krilo had noticed him. Without hesitation, he smiled and ran over, shouting, "Cousin! There you are." At this greeting, Krilo's expression didn't change, but his eyes flickered slightly. He smiled and replied, "Knight, when did you arrive?" "I got here yesterday afternoon," the Knight answered, counting on his fingers with mock seriousness. Despite being roughly the same height as Krilo, his baby face made him look years younger. His cute expression was perfectly timed. "Who's this sister?" he asked, glancing at the girl. The girl, realizing he was referring to her, looked to Krilo and asked, "Is he the one you just called?" Krilo pursed his lips and smiled. "Ah, he's my distant cousin, Knight. He's visiting Seer City during the holidays. My aunt asked me to take care of him." He placed extra emphasis on "take care of," and the Knight felt a bit nervous. "Makes sense, stingy Krilo just called him cousin." The girl nodded politely and said, "Hello, Knight, I'm Lilia Zirlatu, and I'm Krilo's." She paused, sneaking a glance at the handsome boy beside her, her cheeks turning pink, and trailed off. The Knight only caught her last words, "Since you're Krilo's cousin, I'll treat you well. In Seer City, there's nothing the Zirlatu family can't handle." Her meaning was clear, she'd protect him no matter what. But the young lady had no idea the baby-faced boy and her boyfriend were scheming to steal her family's heirloom, the blessing of the green elf. Yes, the moment he heard her surname was Zirlatu, the Knight's internal database kicked in, a noble family ranked among the top 10 in the country of Kalamloth. Its patriarch, Jizo, was a high-ranking official with ties to criminal syndicates and immense wealth. Among their treasures was said to be a century-old emerald, the blessing of the green elf. This gem, supposedly the world's largest color-changing liquorite, changed hue with temperature. Since Jizo never displayed it, its authenticity remained uncertain. "Sister, are you my cousin's girlfriend?" the Knight asked shyly. Then, "Thank you for your care." He scratched his head bashfully, catching a meaningful glance from Krilo out of the corner of his eye. That evening, Miss Zirlatu invited Krilo and his cousin Knight to stay at the Zirlatu estate on the outskirts of Seer City. Because they stayed out late, Knight didn't meet the rest of her family. His real mission tonight, however, was to report to his boss. He climbed through Krilo's window effortlessly. The dark-eyed youth was still engrossed in a book, not even glancing up. "Captain," the Knight greeted first. "Sit down." Still flipping pages slowly, Krilo replied in that soft, magnetic voice. "There's an 80% chance the emerald is in the Zirlatu family's possession. I'm interested." He revealed his goal at once, just as the Knight had suspected. "So?" The Knight waited for further orders. "I asked Lilia, she has no knowledge of the gem. I suspect only Jizo Zirlatu, the family head, knows where it's kept. I want you to find it within the next few days." Krilo's tone was calm as he finally looked up. His gleaming eyes and striking features gave him the allure of the fallen angel Lucifer. "Why smile like that at a man?" the Knight complained inwardly. "No problem, Captain," the Knight replied with a grin. He didn't question why Pakinoda, who could extract memories, wasn't assigned the task. In the Phantom Troop, the captain's word was absolute. Half of Krilo's thoughts were unreadable anyway. "All right. You can go," Krilo said, waving him off. "Am I feeling a little hurt?" the Knight wondered as he lay in bed. When the leader gave orders, logistics members like him always got the most work. The next day, the Knight met two more members of the Zirlatu family, Miss Lilia's mother, Mrs. Zirlatu, and her 5-year-old brother, Ben. The patriarch, Jizo, was attending a high-level meeting and wouldn't return until tomorrow. That meant he had one day to figure out how to learn the gem's secret from Jizo Zirlatu. The Knight smiled as he watched Krilo effortlessly chat and laugh with the Zirlatu family, thinking to himself, "Today, they both got a full taste of noble life." Chapter 35. The family's complex etiquette and lavish indulgence meant that upper-class dinners often lasted past 10 in the evening. The Knight had attended many such events in his previous life and was well adjusted to them. But how was Krilo, who grew up in Meteor Street, so at ease? As he pondered this, he heard Krilo, who passed by him, whisper, "Jizo is back." The head of the Zirlatu family? Wasn't he supposed to return tomorrow? Though slightly surprised, the Knight had no reason to doubt Krilo's intel. It looked like he'd have to visit the Zirlatu patriarch a night early. Jizo Zirlatu didn't appear at the dinner, perhaps due to fatigue, or because he didn't take Krilo, who claimed to be a noble from a minor country, seriously. However, the infatuated Miss Lilia delivered the news promptly. The knight easily found an excuse to leave the dinner. Using Zetsu, he slipped over to the manor's eastern wing, where the master resided. He silently eliminated several guards likely assigned to Jizo, then crept toward the bedroom door. Someone else was here. The knight halted. Through the wall, he heard Jizo removing his coat and stepping into the bathroom. But he also sensed a faint presence clinging to the outer wall, subtle, almost imperceptible. Had he not trained under a professional assassin, he wouldn't have noticed. Wait, an assassin? The knight's eyes narrowed. Someone was targeting Jizo Zirlatu. That couldn't happen, not before he found the gem Krilo wanted. Thinking quickly, he summoned a thin wire between his fingers and, within 5 seconds, slipped inside. Jizo was still showering. The assassin outside the window had picked that moment to act. As soon as the knight entered, he was confronted by a youth with long black hair and cold, lifeless cat-like eyes. Though appearing 12 or 13, the boy moved like a shadowed predator. He lunged at the knight like a panther. It wasn't exactly for Jizo's protection, but the knight acted swiftly. In under 3 seconds, he blocked over 50 nen attacks, some emitted and some materialized, with his conjured blade. He also clashed physically with the assassin at least 10 times. Tough bastard. The knight concluded. This kid was a weapon, honed from childhood. During their skirmish, he saw nothing, no emotion, no hesitation, in the boy's face. Only hollow eyes. How could he explain to this killer that he also had sinister motives? The knight dodged and countered, careful not to let the scuffle alert Jizo, who was still in the bathroom. Fighting under these constraints was a nightmare. Crap. That last move was too much. A chair was sent flying by the force of their clash, crashing loudly. "Who's there?" came Jizo's voice from the bathroom. Clearly used to danger, the high-ranking official from Kalonlov reacted instantly, not by confronting the disturbance, but by smashing the window and fleeing. His bodyguards would respond to the noise any second. "We can't let him escape." Both the knight and the assassin thought the same and dashed toward the window. Wrapped in nothing but a towel, Jizo's pale figure was a beacon under the night sky. Splatter. A bloom of blood erupted from his back. Though he stumbled forward several steps, inertia spent, Jizo collapsed. The knight shot a glare at the assassin beside him. Damn it, how could he forget that the kid specialized in long-range hidden weapons? The assassin didn't even spare him a glance. Leaping into the night, he vanished. Almost immediately, 20 to 30 bodyguards flooded the area. They saw Jizo Zirlatu lying dead, and panic erupted. Time to go all out. At this point, even if the knight and Krilo weren't identified as the killers, they'd still be prime suspects. Why not kill them all? The knight's eyes gleamed with resolve. Against a Nen user, ordinary people didn't stand a chance. In less than 3 minutes, only he remained. "Something happen?" came Krilo's calm voice from the direction of the dining hall. He approached slowly, eyes unreadable. The knight noted a faint red stain on his coat, clearly blood. He'd killed 2. "It was a miscalculation on my part," the knight admitted without hesitation. He explained the ambush. The assassin was well trained, good Nen control. Based on what I sensed, he's likely from the world's most notorious assassin clan, the Zulks. "Zuldik?" "Humph," Krilo sneered faintly, then turned to him. "Jizo's dead. What now, knight? What else?" Grinding his teeth mentally, the knight forced a grin. "No problem, Captain. I'll get the gem from the Zirlatu vault one way or another. Sadness times success times 1 breakfast." "Seriously? They called us out here for this?" Finks grumbled, hurling a valuable crown to the floor of the treasure vault. "Hey, Hey, treat it as a favor, alright? Besides, it's the captain's order, it counts as a mission, the knight said with a laugh. He stooped to retrieve the jeweled crown Finks had tossed. Man, even if it's not that gem, you shouldn't waste stuff like this. Examining the artifact, he noted, This should be the crown commissioned by the third king of the Surau kingdom in the 13th century for his queen. That blue diamond, about 5 centimeters, is the third largest colored diamond in the world. It's incredibly valuable. Even if you don't appreciate it, at least sell it. TCH. You talked too much, Phaeton muttered nasally. The crash of broken items echoed behind him. Turning, the knight saw that Phaeton's section was a disaster zone. Numerous priceless antiques had been destroyed. One painting, the knight recognized it as Girl in the Morning Light, worth hundreds of millions, had a gaping hole in the subject's head, clearly courtesy of Phaeton's umbrella. Oh come on, Phaeton, be careful. That stuff could have made a fortune. The knight's heart bled at the wreckage. Really? Phaeton raised an eyebrow and turned. An ornate porcelain vase tumbled from his umbrella and cracked. Headache incoming. Krollo had tasked the knight with retrieving the blessing of the green elf from the vast Zirlatu estate. So, of course, he summoned help. Thankfully, Phaeton, and Finks, who had been nearby, responded quickly. The knight had mapped potential hiding spots for valuables throughout the manor. Naturally, the first basement floor's treasure vault was top of the list. Earlier, passing the dining hall, he saw the corpses of Mrs. Zirlatu, her son, and a mass of bodyguards. Clearly, Krollo had handled things when he sensed trouble. Lilia Zirlatu lay on the periphery, eyes wide, lifeless, her upper body soaked in blood. One hand stretched as if trying to reach someone. The knight only shrugged. Any woman entangled with Krollo was doomed to the same fate. Chapter 36. Finks and Phaeton arrived quickly, but they were so brash. If the knight had known things would unfold this way, he would have arranged for Packnoda and Franklin to accompany Krollo during this 3-month rotation. Women tended to be more meticulous, and while Franklin was quiet, he was hard-working and would never complain about being overworked. The knight would definitely owe them a favor after this. Found it. After 2 hours of effort, the knight finally discovered a hidden button on a wall. Next to it was a small, secret door made of material nearly indistinguishable from the wall, easily missed. It should be inside. That took a lot of work, he muttered. He pressed the button, and the door opened, revealing an exquisite box. Let's see what caught the captain's eye. Finks approached, retrieved the box, and opened it. Inside lay a fist-sized emerald gemstone, glowing brilliantly under the treasure room's lights. TCH. That's it? Phaeton scoffed. He was never interested in jewels, or anything tied to monetary value. New torture devices or the latest games were more his thing. All right, I'll bring it to the captain. The knight said cheerfully. There's a lot of treasure here. Take what you like. Even if you don't want it, you can sell it on the black market. A little extra cash never hurt. Got it. Finks waved casually. The knight headed upstairs, straight to the study of the Zirlatu patriarch. He couldn't imagine Krollo being anywhere else in the manor. Knock, knock, knock. Come in, knight, came Krollo's voice. We've found it, Captain. The knight walked in, smiling, and set the gemstone box on the desk. Krollo sat in a leather chair, reviewing a stack of documents. The knight caught a glimpse. It looked like a contract between the Zirlatu family and a gang. Really? Let me see. Krollo put the paper down, retrieved a piece of velvet, and carefully unwrapped the gem. He held it up to the light. Such a flawless, clear gem, worth a lot even without the color shifting. He examined it briefly, then tossed it back into the box. Well done, knight. Go get Finks and Phaeton. We're leaving. His lips curved slightly, dark eyes glinting with quiet satisfaction. The knight responded with a crisp yes and exited. Was Kurlo's expression just contentment over the gem? Or something else? He replayed the moment before he left. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the gem box lying casually on the desk. He also caught a glimpse of the document Kurlo had been reading. That guy wasn't after the blessing of the green elf, he was targeting some gang connection? The knight paused, glanced back at the door, then gave a resigned shrug. Forget it. Let Kurlo do whatever he wanted, after all, he was the leader of the Phantom Troop. The knight had neither the right nor the desire to interfere with whatever it was that Kurlo Lucifer was planning. That night, flames lit the sky as Zirlatu Manor burned. Beneath the stars, 4 figures darted through the city of Seer, vanishing like streaks of light. I am the dividing line for the next day. A gentle breeze fluttered the curtains. Sunlight streamed into the room. The knight rubbed his eyes and sat up. Ugh. I'm still half asleep. He pouted, reached for his phone, and shut off the alarm. But when he opened his eyes, he showed no sign of grogginess. The knight always woke on time. On mission-free days, his life was neatly scheduled: wake up, eat, train, browse the web. However, today was different. Knight, let's go get breakfast. Kurlo stood at the door with a smile. Whether he'd been waiting or just coincidentally passing by, it was impossible to say. We're not waiting for Phaeton and the others? The knight asked, following him as usual. No need. Kurlo turned, locking eyes with him. Do you think the two of us together would face any threat we can't handle? Honestly. There was always a chance. But the knight trusted Kurlo's judgment, and his own careful planning. Oh, whatever. What else could he say? There's something I need you to help with soon. In the hotel's restaurant, Kurlo flipped through the breakfast menu as he spoke. So it was about work. The knight nodded quickly. What is it, Captain? Waiter, Kurlo raised his hand. 2 black teas, 2 croissants, fried eggs, and a vegetable salad. After the waiter bowed and left, Kurlo looked at the knight. Don't worry. Just come with me after breakfast. Then he turned back to the window and said nothing more until the food arrived. The knight's expression shifted. He really couldn't read this guy sometimes. Here is your order, the waiter said, placing the dishes neatly on the table. If you need anything else, feel free to call me. He bowed and left. The knight eyed the steaming tea with some distaste, picked up his bread, and began eating. Kurlo, can you not order for me? He preferred coffee, or juice, at the very least. Why? Don't like it? Kurlo noticed the sour expression and asked calmly. There's a top-tier black tea plantation near Seer, in Kalan Lov. This hotel uses their best leaves. Not your thing? He nodded reluctantly. Back in his previous life, the knight had preferred teas like pu'er or green pine. Slightly bitter, earthy, and mellow, they didn't get sickening even after long periods. Oh? I see. My apologies. Want me to order something else? Kurlo smiled faintly. No need, Captain. The knight refused immediately. No matter how nice Kurlo appeared, he was still the leader of the Phantom Troop. Picky behavior was a luxury he couldn't afford. He wasn't some spoiled romantic heroine. People from Meteor City weren't choosy about food. Besides, Kurlo still had something to discuss. The knight decided to finish eating quickly. Done already? Kurlo swallowed his bread, sipped his tea, and finished his meal unhurriedly. All right, knight, let's go. He stood first and walked toward the exit. The knight dropped cash on the table and hurried after him. Today was sunny and bright, perfect tourism weather. Seer wasn't a famous destination, but the streets bustled with activity. Still, even in a crowd of attractive men and women, Kurlo stood out. People couldn't help but stare. The black-haired boy didn't seem to mind the attention. Amid the busy streets, he walked with the grace of a noble strolling an ancient path. The knight, following behind, studied him. Just a few months apart, and Krolo had grown again. Chapter 37. Krolo had been acting mysterious. They were almost out of the commercial district, and he hadn't said a word to the knight. "Captain," the knight finally broke the silence. It wasn't that he was impatient, he simply hated being strung along. Krolo was clearly teasing him, and even though it wasn't to his liking, the knight had to disrupt the silence. "What do you want to say?" "Are you getting impatient, knight?" "Haha, I'm not," Krolo said, turning with a gentle, innocent smile. If a girl had seen Krolo like that, she might have followed him to the ends of the earth. But next to him was the knight, another spider, just as deep and equally skilled in wearing masks. "Not in a hurry? Then why drag me out here for a walk? Damn it." Beneath his sleeves, the knight's fists clenched, veins twitching with tension. Still, he smiled. "Really, Captain? I thought this was going to be important. In other words, stop wasting my time." Seeing the intent in the knight's eyes, Krolo sighed and rubbed his temples. "Knight, I know you don't have anything urgent going on. So what's wrong with taking a walk once in a while?" He looked toward the cityscape and said slowly, "Over there is one of Colonlov's landmark buildings. It's called the Twisted Corridor because every floor's layout is nearly identical. They say newcomers often get lost trying to find the exit, let alone the room they want. But it houses the Hunter Association's Colonlov branch. All that confusion is just a display of power to the public. And yet..." His voice grew cold. "I hate that kind of arrogance. For normal people, hunters might as well be from another world," the knight said. After his recent stint posing as a civilian named Dillier in a remote town, he understood that sentiment better than Krolo. "Krolo. Captain, we're not from their world either." He almost let the name slip and quickly glanced at Krolo to gauge his reaction, but he didn't seem to mind. "Yes, you're right," Krolo concluded, then continued walking with the knight. After a pause, he added, "Go north from here, turn the corner, and you'll find Saint-Will Cathedral. Lilia once told me there's a holy relic inside, said to be left by the gods. It's only revealed during the New Year ritual. This relic," he turned his head slightly, eyes gleaming, "is said to cleanse hearts and purify sinners' souls." "Haha, knight, don't you think that's ridiculous?" He spoke Lilia's name, Lilia, the girl who loved him and whom he killed yesterday, with the casualness of talking about the weather. His heart was harder than steel. Cleanse sin. It was laughable. In the knight's eyes, it was just an illusion used to pacify fear and guilt. A trick. That relic must be an illusion-type Nen artifact. Was that what Krolo was after? "Hey, knight, your captain is trying to sound philosophical, stop zoning out." Though he followed Krolo like nothing was wrong, the knight's eyes wandered. The dark-eyed boy beside him noticed and let out a faint, artificial cough to bring him back to focus. "Ah, Captain, are we going to steal the holy relic from the church?" That was the first thing out of the knight's mouth once he snapped out of it. Not exactly the smartest move in front of a superior. Krolo said nothing, nor did he react. He just turned and walked forward. The knight wasn't sure if he was upset, so he followed silently. They soon arrived at Saint-Will Cathedral, a majestic structure built about 2 centuries ago. With golden glazed tiles, green walls, and 5 grand arched doors, it exuded both majesty and reverence. Whether due to its age or the sacred object it held, worshippers constantly flowed in and out. If they attempted to steal it now, there would be witnesses. This wouldn't be easy. The knight pinched his chin, mind racing. "Knight, go pray," Krolo suddenly said. "What?" Before he could react, Krolo pulled him into the church and sat him in the last pew. He watched Krolo close his eyes and place his hands together in prayer, and couldn't help but twitch his mouth. "Krolo, are you serious?" With no choice, the knight imitated him, listening to the surrounding breaths of the praying crowd. People like them, living between life and death, weren't the type to be swayed by religious illusions. So why was Krilo here? The knight certainly didn't believe he'd had a spiritual awakening. Knight, please. Christianity and Buddhism are different religions. The filthy sanctuary times Krilo's ambition times new event. The boy beside him was expanding his aura. Was he using N? The knight, eyes still closed, wondered what Krilo was up to. After a moment, Krilo withdrew his aura, cracked open one eye, and muttered, "I was right. This church isn't just for worship." Huh? The knight was puzzled. He was clever, but without more context, he couldn't figure out Krilo's deduction. "Let's go around back." Krilo didn't explain further. They exited through the prayer hall into a garden full of olive trees. As the wind stirred the branches, Krilo's short hair swayed with the leaves. For a fleeting moment, the knight sensed a rare loneliness in the young man. "That area," Krilo pointed toward a forbidden section of the church, "holds the relic. But strangely, there are no Nen-users guarding it." No Nen-users guarding something like that? That relic, displayed every year, yet never stolen? Thoughts flew through the knight's head. A so-called sacred relic worshipped by normal people, lacks security, the nearby Hunter Association branch, and frequent black market activity. This cathedral was far from simple. A money-making front. That's the label the knight mentally gave St. Will Cathedral. No doubt the so-called soul cleansing came at a steep cost. And everything looked perfectly legal. Even other Nen-users or hunters who knew the truth wouldn't risk clashing with two massive powers to expose it. But why was Krilo interested? The knight turned toward him. No matter what kind of collusion was going on, it shouldn't concern them, right? "Knight, looks like you're thinking hard," Krilo said. He had turned around at some point, black eyes fixed on him. "How far do you think the phantom troop can go?" So that was what Krilo wanted to ask. The knight smiled and replied, "I don't know, Captain. But I'm sure we can surpass them." Krilo nodded with approval. That assurance was what he needed. Even if they differed at times, as long as their direction was aligned, they'd be fine. Krilo Lucifer never cared about temporary wins or losses. He only needed to keep going, all the way to the end. When the boss handed out orders, the knight's life got busier. Krilo never underestimated others. He knew no single faction could dominate the world. What he wanted was a reality where no one could threaten the Phantom Troop, not gangs, not even the Hunter Association. But there was still a long road ahead. And for now, they had to play nice. The current Phantom Troop was still just a gang of thieves from Meteor City. Chapter 38. There are countless individuals and groups like them with B-level wanted notices. However, to elevate the Phantom Troop's global reputation, to genuinely enter the ranks of the world's most influential forces, and to maintain equilibrium with them, it's not simply about upgrading from a B-level warrant to A or S level. Krilo understood this, and of course, so did Knight. They earned fear and respect in Meteor City not just for their strength, but because they didn't clash with the entrenched powers already operating there. But the world beyond Meteor City was much more complex. Stronger individuals, countless factions, sovereign nations, militarized organizations, and above all, the Hunter Association, which transcended even government power and stood above tens of thousands of criminal groups. The Phantom Troop's goal wasn't to hide, it was to stand among them, to earn a voice, not to spend their days fearing ambush from rival powers. A wanted poster? That was just for show. What criminal organization didn't have a few wanted criminals? And weren't they all still living just fine? To achieve this ambition, both strength and time were essential. Krilo needed to build relationships with the peripheral agents of the core powers, and then, step by step, use money, manipulation, or force to expand his influence, until he reached the inner circle. Eventually, he would displace someone, remove them, even, and claim that position himself. Only then would the phantom troop be untouchable. That was Krillow's ambition. That's why Knight was always busy. Their foundation was still weak, they couldn't afford to provoke forces they couldn't match. They also needed to constantly monitor changes in the mid-tier and smaller forces, because in the underworld, unless you were one of the big players, you could be wiped out overnight due to one misstep. That's where Knight came in. After all, wasn't he the brigade's walking database? Through slow accumulation and strategic maneuvering, time passed, and now it was already 1993. Knight, tell me the mission details, Krillow said calmly, handing over the rest of the operation to his most trusted subordinate. Then listen up, Knight said, fingers dancing across the keyboard. This time we've been hired by the Francis Huan family to accompany them to an ancient ruin, to investigate and retrieve any artifacts or historical records found. So I need you all to stay controlled and not act on your own before the leader gives an order. He raised his eyes and swept his gaze over the seated members. The warning in his eyes was unmistakable. He'd fought hard for this opportunity and couldn't let these violent idiots ruin it. So not everyone had been notified. Uvagin and Nobunaga, who were destructive by nature, and the bizarrely dressed Banolanov were left out. Kordapi, who liked experimenting with poisons and testing them on others, wasn't invited either. The ones present were Maki, Pakinota, Finks, Franklin, Deliza, Number 4, Calito, referred to here as Cupid, and Phaeton. Why Phaeton? He was known for his temper, but he also strictly followed the brigade's rules and obeyed Krillow's orders. He'd fight when told and stay put when told. Next, I'll brief you on the ruins environment and the precautions for the mission. Knight exchanged a glance with Krillow and continued, blah blah. Our primary goal isn't to secure the treasure, but to protect the Francis Huan family. What? We're bodyguards now. We're a gang of thieves. Finks protested loudly. And truly, it did sound ridiculous. Why would the Francis Huan family need a bunch of criminals to guard them? Both Knight and Krillow suspected a trap. They'd considered turning down the job. But Knight had found no suspicious leads, no connections between the Phantom Troop and the 13 or 14-year-old girl who supposedly made the request. Krillow, intrigued, told Knight to accept. So before anything was revealed, Knight told the others, it's a little odd, but the youngest daughter of the family made the request personally. She's the reason we were invited. The eldest daughter will also be joining the expedition. Our job is to protect her. Everyone else's fate doesn't matter. Finks turned away with a grunt. Phaeton kept playing his handheld game. Maki and Pakinota nodded. Deliza shrugged indifferently. Calito and Franklin rarely spoke, but they seemed to absorb the information with care. That's it, everyone. We head out in 2 days, start preparing. Knight smiled, closed his laptop, and watched the others leave. Soon only he and Krillow remained. They scattered fast, Knight said with a soft laugh. He had a bad feeling about this mission. He glanced at Krillow, who was already absorbed in a book. That man. He probably noticed something too. The so-called ancient ruin was on an island owned by the Francis Huan family. Since it was private property, no independent hunters had ever explored it. 6 months ago, the family conducted several expeditions, but they couldn't get past the first gate. Eventually, they turned to outsiders for help, researchers and powerful specialists. Since the site was on an island, the meeting point was the pier. Knight got up early and arrived with Krillow and the others. To his surprise, the Francis Huan party had been waiting for over 10 minutes. That's strange, Knight murmured. The meeting wasn't scheduled for another half hour. Why was the employer so eager? Or rather, someone in their group was especially eager. Anyone with eyes could see it. Among the expedition crew and bodyguards stood a girl in fitted travel gear and a backpack. She stared openly at them, specifically at Krillow, Phaeton, and Knight. She shifted her gaze often but avoided Phaeton, who already looked annoyed, and focused instead on Krillow's polite smile and Knight's friendly expression. That had to be the youngest daughter, Angie von Francis Wen, who had persuaded her family to hire the Phantom Troupe. She was only 14 but had already awakened her Nen. And judging from her reactions, she seemed to recognize them. Knight frowned. He was close to figuring something out, but he needed confirmation. Krillow walked ahead, the others naturally falling in behind him. He stopped 2 or 3 meters from the Francis Wen party and addressed them with a calm smile. I am Krillow Lucifer, leader of the Phantom Troupe. We'll be responsible for protection during this mission. These are my members. Please follow their instructions, and avoid acting independently. His eyes settled on the girl who had been watching him, and his smile deepened. You must be Miss Angie von Francis Wen. For your safety, please ensure your team cooperates with us, all right? The girl blushed, pink bubbles practically forming in her eyes. She rushed to respond, yes. I'll keep them in line, Mr. Lucifer, don't worry. Also, why you can just call me Angie. Knight found the whole scene hard to watch. What was it with Krillow? Every time they had a mission, he donned that dramatic black coat with the white fur collar, slicked back his hair with enough hairspray to stop bullets, and suddenly look 5 years older. Knight had once joked, was it because his youthful face lacked the gravitas of a gang leader? Krillow hadn't answered. Instead, he disciplined Knight in his own way. Chapter 39. Krillow had bossed Knight around for a month. Fortunately, Knight didn't tease him about his odd behavior, otherwise his own fate might have been worse. Ahem, we're drifting off topic. What Knight was really wondering, how could a young girl fawn over someone as maturely dressed as Krillow? He didn't deny that Krillow was undeniably handsome, but wouldn't teenage girls prefer bright, sunny types like Knight? So, Knight, are you jealous? Ahem, author, stay on target. In reality, Knight suspected the girl knew Krillow's true age and appearance, and that was why she was so infatuated. His suspicion was confirmed. Smiling knowingly, Knight stepped forward and introduced himself. Dear lady, I'm Knight, the planner of this expedition. It's my honor to assist you. This time, Miss Francis Wen blushed deeply. Clearing her throat, she looked up and said, Hello, Mr. Knight. Then. I'll rely on your plan. I trust it'll be flawless. No, I'm just hoping to perfect it. Knight replied with an embarrassed grin. Though that planning role made him alert, you really shouldn't mess with his plans. Really? Mr. Knight, you're too modest. Angie praised. Call me Knight, please. He responded warmly. Okay, then I'll call you Knight. They chatted animatedly for 10 minutes while waiting for the boat. Franklin, standing aside, leaned to Maki and whispered, I'm getting a bad vibe from that girl. Maki replied coldly, Knight seems to be paying way too much attention to her, I don't like it. Phaeton, I feel she's flirting with you. Don't kill her before Krillow gives the order. Phaeton grunted, his face darkening. He hated pity or sentimental gazes, and now there were plenty of both coming from this girl. He wanted to request off the trip, but dared not. They'd need 2 days by boat to reach the island ruins. Knight took the opportunity to assemble everyone and laid out the briefing. Although we invited no beasts, expect devil vines or carnivorous flora near the equator, stay vigilant. We're excavating a tomb of the extinct kingdom of Getmeyer, about 700 years old. Its history was short-lived but once glorious, wiped out by natural disasters like volcanic eruptions and tsunamis. He paused and continued seriously, here's what matters, this kingdom worshipped gods. The tomb likely contains relics imbued with divine power. Until we confirm it's safe, touch nothing. Better yet, don't contact the walls, just walk. The brigade members nodded, used to Knight's serious tone. But Angie muttered under her breath a comment Knight recognized instantly from over a decade ago. Fanfiction isn't reliable. Manga is the same. There are so few side characters like Knight. It's not what I expected. This person, what's going on? A dangerous gleam flashed in Knight's eyes. Did she also come from another world? But she remembered too much of it. Ordered times revealed as fellow countrymen times unacceptable. After finishing the briefing, Knight raised his voice for the crew. That got serious, but rules are rules. If anything comes up, come to me directly. He noticed Angie's expression shift, she clearly caught on to something. Krolo then rose, addressed Angie. We'll be on the boat for 2 days, so conserve energy, Angie. His tone was gentle yet authoritative. Angie, despite being spoilt, nodded obediently. I understand, Mr. Lucifer. My team and I will stay in our cabin and won't cause trouble. Good. Knight caught the subtle twitch of Krolo's left pinky, betraying calculation and strategy. He'd noticed only because he watched Krolo so closely. Angie's overly dutiful reaction and keen awareness marked her as suspicious. Krolo already intended for her to die, but Knight decided he'd empty everything out of her mind first. Krolo then said, Angie, please return to your cabin and rest. Knight and I will patrol the ship. Angie flushed, calling him Krolo instead of Mr. Lucifer. Krolo's eyes flickered faintly, then he departed with everyone following. Maki, Pakanoda, check the captain's quarters. Phaeton and Finks, scrutinize the stern. Rest of you, monitor Angie and her group. Leave no signs. He turned to Knight. You're with me. Understood. Knight wasn't surprised. He followed Krolo to the bow. Krolo stopped and asked. How much can you get out of her, Knight? She's strange, knows too much about us, even the internal roles. Does she know what she's doing? Knight shook his head. Hard to say. She's contradictory, confident but wary. Tough to get direct intel from her. She avoids Pakanoda, sees through him. Her guard is up. Krolo sneered. Knight, I know your skills. I expect a report by morning. Without waiting for a reply, he walked off. Nothing to worry about, that's just what I expected, Knight muttered. He faced the ocean, waves splashing around him. His expression turned cold and distant, mirroring Krolo's, as he watched the ship slice through the water. Chapter 40. It's rare to sleep well on a ship, but the Knight managed. He glanced at the dozing guards and servants, nodded to Deliza, who was quietly monitoring Angie, and slipped into Angie von Francis Wen's cabin. Who's there? A delicate voice cried out. The Knight dodged several traps with practiced ease and whispered, Please, calm down, my lady. He spoke not in the Hunter world's tongue but in their shared native Mandarin. What, who are you? Angie began, but the Knight covered her mouth. Shh, lower your voice. Don't you realize Krolo is suspicious of you? Her eyes widened. The Knight saw shock, hesitation, and fear on her face. He whispered urgently, I can help you. Don't scream, let's talk. Angie nodded, relieved to meet a fellow countryman. She waited eagerly. Sitting beside her on the sofa, the Knight began, First, when did you arrive? I came 2 years ago. I came 6 months ago. You really are Knight, the spider, Angie whispered in Chinese. Of course, he replied, slightly impatiently. Do you know it's serious? I'm trying to save your life. Her voice trembled. Why is it serious? Why does Krolo suspect me? All your behavior gives you away, Knight said bluntly. You're from the Francis Wen family, yet you're oddly invested in a group of bizarre guards. When you insisted the brigade join the mission, Krolo got suspicious. I stepped in just in time. Angie blushed, murmuring, I thought I was being subtle. Tell me, were your eyes shining when you saw them? Knight pressed on. You lit up like a beacon, and Phaeton already noticed the stares. Did you not see the hostility in his eyes? I just got excited, time traveling and meeting comic characters, she stammered. You've been in the brigade for 2 years. 2 years. Do you know how hard it's been? The knight turned away. The first month, I nearly blew my cover. Krolo constantly asked me for intel. I felt like I lost myself. He stared at his hands, as if they bore irreversible stains. Angie fell silent. She had her original body's memories, had an easy life, and thought this was a dream, unaware of the world's real darkness. Okay, enough of that, the knight said, lifting his head. Let's fix your problem, and then, you have to tell me the comic plot. What? I don't remember it either. She almost shouted. He nodded. I'd almost forgotten too busy with studies before I got here. Luckily, I retained my old memories. But now I'm in a gang, terrified daily. I need your plot knowledge. All right, Angie said quickly. In comics, all knights are. What? He leaned forward, straining to hear. She opened and closed her mouth, but no sound emerged. Heart pounding, he leaned closer. Silence. Angie, did you say it twice yet I heard nothing? He whispered. Maybe. She blinked. Maybe this world won't let the plot be revealed in advance. He frowned deeply. So, if she couldn't tell him the plot, she was useless. Worse, she might alter its direction. Maybe he should kill her. Modify X, confirm Krolo can change demeanor depending on color. Angie scrambled to soothe him. She guessed he must be a woman disguised as a man. You have a deceptive baby face, she said. She worried about her life, yet tried to comfort him. Just know that everything is okay, she said softly, affirming her own safety. You're saying the comics don't kill off Knight, yes? He prompted. She nodded emphatically. He relaxed. I don't know specifics, but that's enough, thank you, Angie. Now. I'm worried too. Her eyes shone with concern. Being targeted by Krolo is dangerous. He scratched his head. Krolo will probably ask Pakinoda to read your mind, but memory defenses will stop him. Right now, Krolo is building goodwill with crime families, so this bodyguard job makes sense. He leaned closer, meeting her gaze. Angie, you're the beloved youngest daughter of Francis Huan. You're fascinated by this infamous gang, so you arranged their involvement in the excavation. You fell for Krolo's looks, and find Knight's brightness comforting. You're curious about Phaeton, the mysterious type. You thought you could charm them. You're powerful, rich, and confident. You want to win their favor. She stared blankly, repeating, I'm the beloved daughter. I want their favor. He continued. You went to bed early. You saw no one. She echoed mechanically, I went to bed early. Saw no one. Finally, she collapsed with exhaustion. The knight stood, placed her gently on the bed, and pretended to sleep. Even if Angie was from another world, he wouldn't hide it from Krolo. His hypnosis was tactical, he needed to extract her true thoughts without tipping Krolo off. At dawn, Krolo took his post on the bow. The salted breeze touched his face. The black coat fluttered. Chapter 41. Captain. Knight landed behind him silently and called out softly. It's you, Knight. Krolo turned his head to look at the boy behind him, his face calm. You came to me so early, has that matter come to a conclusion? Yes, Captain. Knight nodded and smiled. Captain, I didn't gain much. Maybe you can ask Pakinoda to take a look. Really? Krolo replied calmly. Tell me what you heard first. Okay, Knight shrugged indifferently and said, although I don't know what happened to Miss Francis Huan, according to the information I found earlier, her personality has changed compared to the past 2 years. He exaggerated the time frame slightly. This might be explainable, but, he paused and said solemnly, I suspect she knows some things from a few years in the future. Even if Knight wanted to be explicit, he wouldn't spell it out. For someone like Krolo, who quickly understands subtleties, it's much better to let him piece it together himself. Oh? Krolo became interested. Precognition? A Nen ability? Knight shook his head. I can't say for sure, because when I asked her about the future, she said she couldn't tell me. I can't tell you. Krolo certainly didn't take that at face value. A future that can't be revealed to others? How interesting. I think maybe Pakinota's ability could read her memories, said Knight. Krolo nodded. Find an opportunity to let Pakinota get close to Miss Angie. If it really is a Nen ability. Ha ha. He smiled with resolve. I understand. I'll do it right away. Knight turned around with a smile, and his green, glass-like eyes flashed with an unreadable emotion. That girl's ability was really astonishing. If Knight hadn't already understood Krolo's power after so many years, he might have been dead long ago. It wasn't difficult for Pakinota to get close to Angie. Knight selected a bodyguard from Franciswan's household about the same height as Pakinota, knocked him unconscious, and had Pakinota take his place to deliver a meal. However, as Knight expected, Pakinota was unable to read the information blocked by the space. Still, even though we didn't get specifics about the future, some things are very intriguing, Pakinota suddenly said, though her expression was strange. Oh? What is it? Krolo asked. This. Pakinota hesitated for the first time in front of Krolo. Captain, do you really want to see it? Krolo raised an eyebrow. Pakinota, I thought you knew better. Yes. Krolo decided. Pakinota's hesitation meant little. A memory bullet appeared between her fingers. She quickly loaded it and fired it into Krolo's forehead. A few minutes later. Huh? Really? Krolo's expression stayed calm, but the light in his eyes had become strange, and his complexion had taken on a slightly bluish tinge. This wasn't just a reaction to Angie's hypnosis. Knight was curious. He knew that Angie had been an overly naive girl before, and Knight, being in his 50s when he came, had never understood the mindset of a teenager immersed in literary websites. The space only blocked content from the manga, not Angie's personal imagination after arriving, so Pakinota and Krolo, who saw her memories, were clearly disturbed. So, Krolo knew Angie was a transmigrated soul but couldn't tell if she was from another world or the future. But Krolo quickly regained his composure and said, Indeed, this girl is suspicious. So, keep an eye on her along the journey. Also, Knight, try to get closer to her and gain her trust. All right, I will. Knight nodded, slightly confused. What exactly had Krolo seen to warrant such an order? Pakinota, please give me a bullet too, please. Knight looked up at the tall blonde woman with curiosity and anticipation. Pakinota was 23 and well-developed. With a fine figure, a mature temperament, and a baby face, Knight pestered her like a spoiled child, giving her a headache. But knowing Knight's tricks were endless, and with Krolo not explicitly forbidding it, she simply handed him a memory bullet. Note, before these events, Angie's memory cannot be fully accessed. At this point, the Courtauld clan has not been exterminated, the Zoldyck family has not killed Number 8, and the Phantom Troop hasn't encountered Hisoka, so such events are undetectable. However, Kurapika, Hisoka, Killua, all already exist in this world and thus cannot be blocked. The future, however, remains hidden. Author's note, due to unknown reasons, I cannot leave replies to comments. Yes, Angie is a transmigrator, the answer will be revealed tomorrow. Knight squatted gloomily in the corner of his room, mechanically counting wallpaper patterns. It was the only way to suppress his murderous urges. If not for his future plans. As two people from different time-spaces, even if they're from the same hometown, the age gap is unavoidable. A teenage girl of 15 or 16 and a businessman over 50, it's like the Mariana Trench. In Angie's memories, besides her hypnosis-related content and the real Franciswan's experiences, there were endless stories, Tuanku, Tuanxia, Tuanfei, Faxia, Zichuan, Shi, Tuani, Yiqi, etc. Even if these speculative or fan-made elements about future events were blocked, Knight could still sense the gay romance themes woven into the text. Flip the table. What do girls think about all day? Knight, a straight man in his past life, silently complained. Is this the generation gap? But beyond that, why was he always the errand boy, the pushover, the exploited one, even the bottom in fan stories? So yes, Knight, you're angry about this, huh? Note, this confirms that Knight never had any inclination toward same-sex romance, either in his previous life or now. Readers hoping for romantic developments in this chapter, it's just not realistic. Even though Knight came from 2012, he's in his 50s, born in the 70s, an era not known for LGBTQ+ representation. The point of including a time-traveling woman is to let Knight know there are others from his world and to introduce the concept of Danmei so that his feelings can evolve from here. However, there was still valuable information. The space blocked original manga content, but not real-world names. Knight quickly calmed himself and took note of important names: Illumi, eldest of the Zoldyck family; Hisaka, the clown-like figure; Kurapika, the rabbit-eyed boy; Gon, Killua, Leorio. And the two Nen abilities destined for Krilo. Ah, why do I suddenly feel a chill? Miss Fake Frances when unconsciously rubbed her arms. The weather was warm, yet she felt a cold shiver rise from her bones. Pakinoda, hidden outside the cabin with Zetsu activated, watched the area steeped in sinister energy and shook her head slightly. She couldn't bring herself to like this girl with such bizarre thoughts. Whatever Knight planned to do with her, well, that was none of her concern. Chapter 42. The boy in black smiled softly. He had initially assumed he gave the memory bullet to Knight just to watch his reaction, but it had to be suppressed. How could someone as formidable as Knight be just average, relegated to logistics in those texts? Kuroro, have you forgotten that Knight is still doing logistics? Forget it, today's not the day to stir him, we don't want him caught in the typhoon's tail. And in Anji's memories, the protagonist liked exploiting Knight the most. Fortunately, the rest of the Phantom Troop didn't know about Anji's memory. Or rather, they were used to Krilo's probing habits. Investigating memories and asking questions were responsibilities of Knight and Pakinoda. The others didn't intervene or pry. So far, only the three of them were privy. Knight had the nerve to show up, but his false, masked smile still looked grim. What's up with him? Dilisha gently elbowed Pakinoda beside her. The mature woman looked innocent lunchtime, but under that calm exterior lay a swirl of sinister intent. Pakinoda glanced at Krilo, who ate less than usual before retreating to his books, and at Knight, whose smile was dark as a devil's. She kept quiet, gesturing to Dilisha with a look that said, "I can't tell." Can't tell? Dilisha looked at the others, also puzzled, but decided not to press further. Better not to know what even the team leader avoided discussing. Despite his mood, Knight refused to delay work for personal reasons. That afternoon, Pakinoda noticed the blonde boy already chatting with Anji, then glanced discreetly at Krilo. "Don't worry, Pakinoda," Krilo said softly, "he understands what's at stake. Once this is done, we can alter Anji's memories. It's not time to turn on the Francis Wen family yet. I don't want that baggage to stick." "Yes, Captain," she replied. The two-day voyage ended quickly. They landed on a lush, tropical island. At the front, a researcher who had been here twice before led them to a massive stone gateway. "It's about 50 meters to the second door," he explained, "but it's never been opened." As he stepped in, everyone followed. Soon a larger, more ornate stone door appeared ahead. Since they believed Krilo and his group were only there for security, the researcher and his archaeological team began studying. Anji, the time-traveling girl, watched the group with bright, eager eyes. Krilo admired the ancient patterns on the burial passage walls and faint, worn inscriptions. The gold-lined designs, millennia old, were treasures. What a mysterious, ancient civilization, he whispered. I wonder what else we'll discover. Knight held a laptop, typing as he spoke. The kingdom of Getmir was indeed steeped in culture and art. They worshipped gods and practiced witchcraft, but I suspect it was telekinesis unique to their people. Opening this door may require someone with telekinetic strength stronger than just one practitioner. The archaeological team had made no headway. Finks chimed in coldly, so we can't get in today. Boring. Phaeton muttered, turning away. Angie, who had been quietly observing, hurried forward. With hopeful eyes she asked Kurlo, do you know how to open that door? Can you help me? Her unwavering confidence nearly broke his composure. Why did she assume she could persuade him? Author's note, it was Knight's powerful mental influence that made her so confident. Not. Still, Kurlo wanted to explore the tomb. I'll let my team try it, but results are uncertain. Kurlo nodded at Knight. Go take a look. Yes. Knight moved forward, but his tone sounded like he was gritting his teeth. Kurlo was becoming unbearable. Speculation times foolhardiness times entry. The massive stone door bore detailed totems, a horned, scaled beast surrounded by red spider lilies, elf vines, and stars. Alongside, an ancient inscription. A white-haired archaeology professor slowly translated. Your survival is God-given. Your disaster is God-given. Your mission is God-given. Your silence is God-given. He conferred with a bespectacled colleague in his 40s. Literally, it's religious reverence, not helpful for entry. He dismissed their discussion. We must find another method. What method? Explosives? No, that would destroy the site. The white-haired professor protested. We'll lose the excavation rights if we fail, the man in glasses countered. Well, let's use targeted small charges to preserve structure, the glasses guy said, persuading the group. Respecting the professor's seniority, they reluctantly agreed. Let's begin. The decision made, specialists began installing charges. Knight observed from a distance, eyes fixed on the carved beast, its hideous features and fierce expression, vines and stars hinting at infernal imagery. He concentrated, channeling telepathic awareness through his gaze. A layer of lavender mental power awoke in the golden patterns, laced with a dark, sorrowful regret. The beast on the door revealed itself as a trapped, remorseful soul when perceived by Knight. He grew serious. This wasn't just an ordinary tomb. It might imprison a malevolent beast, or the unwilling spirit of a sacrificed victim. They were in for a dangerous expedition. Regret? The beast is regretful? Kurlo murmured. Intrigued by Knight's insight, he thought, what entity could harbor remorse for centuries? And the one who sealed it must have been stronger. His dark eyes shone with determined curiosity. He wouldn't accept any refusal. Kurlo's curious? Should I have them stop and let Kurlo inspect? Angie, ever perceptive of the captain's mindset, interjected at the perfect moment. Ha ha, Kurlo laughed. Angie, such a thoughtful lady. Angie, the time traveler, felt her face flush, hot enough to fry an egg. She fiddled nervously with her clothes. Then, I'll show him. And she dashed ahead. Kurlo followed without a word. You really don't know live or die, Maki observed coldly. Truly, such a brave girl, Pakunoda murmured. Chapter 43. Finks stretched out his arms and said sarcastically. All the members present felt similarly. Considerate might be a nice word, but being considerate of the Phantom Troop's leader was a dangerous thing. Pakunoda suspected that the memory erasure Kurlo had previously instructed her to carry out might end up as erasing altogether. Stop talking nonsense. I'm going to check things out, follow closely, Knight ordered, then moved forward. All right, let's go, Pakunoda said quietly, stepping after him. Dilisha shrugged at the others and quickened her pace to catch up. The rest of the troop followed suit. A group of archaeologists had already been pushed aside by Miss Franciswin. They were outraged but didn't dare speak up. Only the white-haired professor shouted hoarsely, "Why are these ignorant people allowed here? This is a relic from thousands of years ago. A treasure of history." Crollo turned and gave him an elegant smile. "Of course, Professor. I understand perfectly. That's why. You're not allowed to interfere." "What? We're interfering?" The old professor was so angry he nearly coughed up blood. He had no idea of the consequences brute force would bring if used on the malice-filled stone door. Crollo ignored him and walked to the gate, activating Gyo to observe. Miss Angie, ever perceptive, ordered her bodyguards to drive the archaeologists out and keep them under guard. A few minutes later, Crollo raised his hand and pointed to several spots on the stone pattern with his slender fingers. "Here, here, and here. These seem to be the key points for opening the door." Knight nodded, he had noticed them as well. "Looks like flaws left when the sealer's nen ran out. My theory seems even more likely. When sealing a dangerous beast, normally no one would leave a means to unseal it. These arcs of aura looked complete, but signs of exhaustion hinted that the sealed being was unimaginably powerful. "Maki, I need your nen threads," Knight called back. The cold girl silently stepped forward and, following his instructions, inserted her threads into the indicated points and activated her nen. It was as if someone had flung open a liquid nitrogen freezer. An enormous surge of white aura burst out. Crollo stood protectively before Angie, who was still of use, while Knight shielded Maki. The others defended themselves against the oppressive flood of aura. Cries echoed, ordinary people convulsed and died from the unleashed malice. Angie trembled behind Crollo, clutching his coat. Even as a time-traveling girl with telekinesis, she was helpless in the face of death. She peeked at the ever-calm Maki, the smiling Knight, and Crollo Lucifer, the leader of the Phantom Troop. Their composure was both terrifying and admirable. After 10 minutes, the aura lessened, and after 30, it faded entirely. Crollo turned to the huddled girl behind him and said softly, "Angie, it's safe now." She peeked out. The massive stone door was gone. Only a dark opening remained. "Let's go, Angie," Crollo said, taking her hand. Knight had already scouted ahead. Maki gave her a fleeting glance before entering the darkness. Remains of the ancient beast times failed Operation Time's parting gift. Holding a special searchlight, Knight led the way. The 1,000-year sealed space reeked of damp decay. Occasional remnants of regret brushed past him, but his strength made them negligible. Moving slowly, he observed using Gyo, all 5 senses alert. Blue-green phosphorescence flickered ahead, caused by phosphorus. A sacrificial altar, or maybe the beast's remains? Crollo didn't finish. His interest in the excavation had dwindled. A beast's tomb offered little treasure. The murals outside the second door lacked value. Only the sealing technique and skeletal remains of the beast's slayer intrigued him. "It's so dark, Crollo." Angie clutched his hand tighter. Her borrowed telekinesis had been exhausted during the earlier eruption. In poor health, she was sensitive to lingering malice. Without Crollo's hand, she'd have fled already. "Don't be afraid, Angie," Crollo chuckled. "What we seek is just ahead. Let me take a closer look." "Knight," he called, "take care of our lovely Miss Angie. I'm going forward." "Hey, I'm on it," Knight laughed, handing Crollo the searchlight. "Don't worry, Captain. We'll wrap this up soon. Honestly, that thing's not even valuable." Knight didn't mean the sealing work was shoddy, only that it offered no lessons to extract. Crollo stood before the beast's skeleton, using Gyo to examine layers of runes. After a few seconds, he withdrew his aura, shaking his head with mild disappointment. "Let's leave. There's nothing more here," he said. The millennia-old runes and missing context made reconstruction impossible. The beast's bones were fossilized. Chrollo wasn't an archaeologist, his gift was analysis, not research. He felt no disappointment. This had been an emotional investment, a pretext to cooperate with the Franciswan family and enter high society. There had been no real reward, only Gianni. The time-traveling Angie had only wanted close contact with the troupe, a goal half met. She'd never realized that. The only true loser was Cassius Franciswan, who'd poured resources into this effort. They're all trash. None of them figured it out. Cassius fumed, not over missing treasure, but they all claimed it was an ancient tomb filled with relics. They wasted my time and fortune. I'll send every one of those frauds back to the fields. Chrollo, quietly standing nearby, smiled faintly. For families like the Franciswans, money meant little. But deception? That cut deep. Father, they're not worth your anger, Angie soothed. Her first instinct upon time traveling had been to cling to the powerful Franciswan family. She played the doting daughter well. Perhaps due to Angie's words, or because outsiders were present, Cassius calmed down. He turned to the quiet black-clad youth. I'm sorry, Mr. Lucifer. Chrollo bowed slightly. No, sir. I, too, regret the outcome. Ha 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 ha. No need for politeness, Mr. Lucifer. I admire young men like you. Hey hunters. Quick break. Hope you're enjoying the fanfic. And a fun fact: Togashi's wife, Naoko Takeuchi, sometimes helped him finish chapters. She reportedly inked or touched up some HXH panels when he was on deadline. Now let's keep going with the fanfic. Chapter 44. If it weren't for you, I'd probably still be deceived by those people. Don't worry, I'll introduce you to other clients. You know, there aren't many truly capable people in this world. The capable that Cassius Franciswan referred to clearly held deeper meaning. While telekinetics were rare, the wealthy could still hire them. But the quality was often far inferior. His words were clearly an attempt to recruit. Even after Cassius said that, the young man remained composed. Sir, you may call me Chrollo. Though the Phantom Troop is a bandit group, we are a principled one. He feigned ignorance and sidestepped the implied invitation. The Franciswan family head frowned slightly. The elegant, refined young man didn't look like a criminal leader. Anyone meeting him for the first time would doubt his identity. Still, despite his admiration, Cassius knew the Phantom Troop's reputation. The intelligence gathered from Meteor City spies wasn't simple. Provoking them would bring more loss than gain. Haha, Chrollo, I've had the servants take your group members to their guest rooms. I heard the seas were rough on the way back. Realizing Cassius wanted to end the conversation, Chrollo smiled knowingly. Indeed, sir. I'm tired as well, please excuse me. Cassius allowed it, watching the unfathomable young man leave. He turned sternly to his daughter, who was still gazing longingly at Chrollo's back. Angie, he's not a suitable partner. You must understand that. But Daddy, he's truly amazing. Angie reluctantly tore her gaze away. Despite her soul being that of a modern girl, she still felt a trace of fear toward her father. Franciswan sighed. I won't deny he's remarkable. But he's from Meteor City. If you've never been there, you can't understand the kind of life they live. Angie, you lack the strength to capture his body or heart. So, let go. I'll arrange a proper match for you. Meet someone from a suitable family. In time, you'll forget about him. But Angie tried one last plea, but the stern glare from her father silenced her. Yes, Daddy. I'll follow your arrangements. She bowed like a lady and exited, never noticing the worried look in her father's eyes. The minor tension between Chrollo and Franciswan ensured neither side wanted to linger. The Phantom Troop departed 3 days later. Angie snuck out to see them off. Her teary eyes locked onto the cold, smiling boy. I like you, Chrollo. Please don't leave. Or, Take me with you," she pleaded, full of hope. Krolo gently brushed a few strands of hair from her forehead. "How could I, Angie? We walk a path of blood and death. That's not the life for you. Don't worry, I'll return to visit you." With that, he gave her a gentle hug. "TCH, addicted to acting?" Knight turned away with a cold smile. Krolo held the girl's right hand. Hidden by a page of Bandit's secret turned silently. A sliver of black aura seeped into the girl's body. Krolo never liked doing things openly, this was his method. Ability, end of the Tumi flower. Effect, the recipient's body becomes extremely weak and prone to illness. Death occurs before the age of 15. Restriction, only usable on females, must make physical contact with the target. Since Krolo had taken action, Knight had full confidence in the result. So months later, when news quietly spread that the Franciswan family's daughter had fallen ill and died, he merely shrugged and moved on. Note: Angie is currently 14. Netizen times Phaeton's request times weakness. At the time news broke of Angie's death, Knight was chatting with an online acquaintance. "My brother's exploiting me again. I don't even have snack money." A few words appeared in the chat box. Knight typed swiftly, "Then take on some side jobs. With your hacking skills, it shouldn't be hard. I haven't even finished my chores. If my stingy brother finds out, he'll throw me in the torture chamber for days, and I won't get a cent." "All right, I sympathize," Knight replied dryly. "Anyway, I have a job I'm too busy to handle. Want to take it?" "What job? What's the pay?" "Oh, this family, always so greedy," Knight muttered, fingers flying. "Find me information on the Cortaa clan. Best if you locate their current settlement. Budget is tight, 200 million Jenny. Add another 50 million. "Fine." Knight smirked, agreed, and closed the chat. 250 million for that. He stretched and leaned back in his chair. The blue tint in his eyes showed how sleep-deprived he was. With so much on his plate, even reaching out to the Zoldyck family's second son seemed necessary. Still, the Zoldycks always delivered. Once paid, they followed through. For bandits, money was never an issue. Bang! The door was kicked open, and a small, agile figure appeared behind him. "Phaeton, surprising to see you out of your room." Knight looked up at the golden-eyed boy whose face was half covered. Since leaving Meteor City, Phaeton had become addicted to games. He often made Knight research release dates, then disappeared into his room with bloodied hands and stayed holed up for days. "Need something?" Phaeton's muffled voice came from under his mask. Knight sighed. Why did Phaeton always speak in fragments? "If you won't explain, how am I supposed to help?" "Phaeton," Knight tilted his head, "you used to be more talkative. Why so gloomy now?" Many troop members were quiet, Maki, Franklin, Banolanov, Kordopi, but Phaeton used to get provoked easily. Now he was always silent. Good thing the enhancers made noise, or the troop would be a pressure cooker. "Shut up." Phaeton's scowl darkened. If not for him, no, better not think about that past. All right. Knight knew he'd pushed too far. "What's up?" Phaeton handed over a flyer. "Oh, an antique exhibition, of Eastern artifacts? What caught your eye?" Knight skimmed the list and spotted an odd ancient torture device. Phaeton said nothing. His golden gaze bore into Knight, silently saying, "Help me or I'll stare you to death." Okay. I'll come up with a plan. So please stop standing there like a ghost." Phaeton left content. Knight exhaled and stared at the ceiling. He opened several websites and began researching the exhibition. He had slept less than 10 hours all week. It was rare for him to push a task onto someone else, and now, well, he had to save Phaeton's pride. After all, he had been the one to bring him in. Before he knew it, it was already afternoon. Chapter 45. He hadn't even had time to eat. He was exhausted and just wanted to take a quick nap. But barely a minute after collapsing onto the bed, two distinct knocks sounded at the door. Knight groaned, pulled on his coat, and got up to answer it. There was only one person in the Phantom Troupe with this kind of manners, Krilo Lucifer. Sure enough, as he opened the door, he was met with Krilo's handsome, intelligent face. "Ah, did I disturb your sleep?" Krilo asked, his apology clearly insincere, noting Knight's tired expression and messy blonde hair beneath the hastily thrown-on coat. "Captain, what is it?" Knight asked, trying hard to remind himself that Krilo was still his leader. He couldn't afford to butt heads with him, not now. Though generally calm, Knight had his limits, and this was close. "Ah, nothing urgent." Krilo wore a concerned expression. "As the Phantom Troupe's leader, it's part of my job to check in on members who haven't shown up for meals and days, right?" Knight rolled his eyes internally. He knew exactly what Krilo was up to. Sure, Phaeton liked ancient torture devices, but the flyers for that antique exhibition included relics Krilo himself was known to collect. Knight could admit that Krilo using Phaeton to test him had been annoying, but Phaeton's oblivious reaction had helped him suppress his frustration. Now Krilo was here in person. Knight wasn't pleased. Krilo hadn't expected Knight to buy his excuse. He reached out to pat Knight's shoulder, but Knight dodged it. "Knight," he said, helplessly, "don't be so hard on me." He had indeed wanted to check Knight's progress, but also to see how the strategist was holding up. Krilo knew the task he'd assigned was no small feat. Knight shrugged and let his expression soften into a working smile. He was, after all, still a spider, a troop member ready to take orders. "All right," Krilo said, pressing a hand to his forehead, "show me what you found." "Sure." Knight turned back to his computer, pulled up the structural diagrams of the exhibition venue and scheduled artifact placements, and prepared to explain. Just then, he felt warm breath near his ear. He turned slightly, and his cheek brushed against something incredibly soft. "Wait, what?" Knight froze. Ever since working with the Francis Wen family months ago and receiving Angie's memories, he developed a strange side effect, extreme caution around men. He knew not every guy was gay, and Krilo, with his charisma, could easily charm women, but the sensation still gave him chills. Lately, Krilo had been unusually familiar. Had he figured it out? He, Knight really does look young. Total accident, Krilo teased. Seriously. Knight's eyes flashed with irritation, but he pointed to the display and resumed briefing. This weakness will be overcome, he told himself. Starting with Krilo. The heist is set for 2 a.m., the night after the exhibition opens, Knight explained. I'll disable the cameras and open the security doors remotely. You'll handle the guards. Be fast and don't make noise. He added that Krilo had recently been in contact with certain underworld figures and the Hunter Association, so the troupe needed to keep a low profile. It had to look like a standard burglary. Krilo, lounging with a book, looked up. You've planned well. Here's the team: Phaeton, Maki, Uvagin, Benolanov, and Knight. Targets are items 25, 44, and 56 in Hall A, 74 and 105 in Hall B, and 366 and 380 in Hall E. Take anything else you like, just follow Knight's signal. He smiled at the giant man in the room. Uvagin, didn't you lose a good sword to Nobunaga in a bet? This exhibition has plenty of old blades. Maybe you can find him a new one. Seriously? Sweet, Uvagin laughed. He's not going? Knight glanced at Krilo, surprised. He clearly wanted something. This wasn't like him. That night, several nearly invisible figures slipped into the exhibition hall. Minutes later, they exited, bags full. Knight signaled them back to their rendezvous point while he lingered with Krilo, confused. Captain, Anything else? He asked. Though Krilo had delegated command to him, he still shadowed him, which was odd. Knight knew Krilo trusted him, his loyalty was to the troop, not Krilo personally, so something else was clearly going on. I'm meeting someone, Krilo replied casually. Their identity is sensitive, so a disguise is necessary. I'll need your help. Knight nodded and followed him to a hotel, already booked. Krilo had even prepared the disguise tools in advance. Soon, Krilo's appearance was completely altered. Well, this disguise ability of yours is remarkable, Krilo said, inspecting himself in a mirror. Far more reliable than aura-based disguises. He could mimic appearances using Nen, but only on people weaker than him. In contrast, Knight's work was more foolproof. Thank you, Captain. Knight quickly changed his own face. From Krilo's words, the person they were meeting might be powerful, perhaps stronger than them. He closed his eyes, held his breath, then opened them with a steely calm. Krilo watched, hand over his mouth, then nodded. Let's go. They exited the hotel, walked 2 blocks, and entered the city's largest casino. Bypassing the main hall, they went to the 3rd-floor VIP area. Knight silently memorized the security layout and the faces of the guards. Inside a private suite, several people were already waiting. As Krilo entered, 5 or 6 men in black suits turned to him. A seductive woman swayed over, scanning the newcomers as if using infrared. Is this Mr. Lucifer? The master has been expecting you, she purred. Krilo gave her a regretful smile. Apologies, Miss Mira, I was delayed. His sincerity was disarming, even if everyone knew it was fake. Myra's suspicion faded slightly. She extended her hand. This way. The master is waiting inside. Krilo nodded politely, and Knight noticed a flash of red from Myra's. Chapter 46. A frown creased his face as he quickly turned and led the 2 of them into another room in the suite. Krilo. Knight silently repeated his name. He really knew how to exploit his position to the fullest. Mira stopped at the inner room's door, knocked first, and asked, Master, your guest is here. Shall I let him in? After several seconds, a voice inside answered, Mira turned the doorknob. Come in, Mr. Lucifer. There were only 2 people in the room. A hand-woven felt mat was laid on the carpet in the center, with a low table placed atop it. Kneeling before it was a man around 50 years old, ordinary-looking, with a calm expression. He seemed absorbed by the tea set and the smoke rising from it. Standing behind him was a middle-aged man with a muscular build and tightly wrapped body. His casual but subtly defensive posture marked him as a master fighter. Knight quickly cross-referenced their appearances with his mental database. The kneeling man was Clinda Lee, Secretary General of the world's largest criminal alliance, and a subordinate of the 10 Dons. The man behind him was Pingla, a wanted criminal with an S-class bounty issued by the Hunter Association, known as Dumb Snake. Knight bit his lip. 10 years ago, Pingla had been infamous. He never expected him to be working for the 10 Dons now. Even with guests entering, Clinda didn't look up. He lifted a small purple clay teapot, slowly pouring tea into tiny cups. Please, he said, finally looking up just enough to push a cup toward Krilo, who had already knelt across from him. His tone made it clear this wasn't a request. Without hesitation, Krilo picked up the cup and took a sip. Is this bitter tea? Yeah, Clinda replied indifferently. It's bitter tea. I like it. He drained his own cup, sat upright, and looked Krilo over. This should be our first meeting. I didn't expect the leader of the Phantom Troop, Mr. Lucifer, to be so young. Even with Knight's makeup, there were clues, hands, chest, posture, that hinted at Krilo's youth. Krilo said nothing, sipping again before meeting Clinda's gaze. Mr. Lee, let's move on to business. Clinda gave a cold snort. Young people should be more patient. You may have been confirmed as partners, but countless others are desperate for a connection with the 10 Dons. But Krilo remained composed, as if unfazed by the posturing. I also recall that I'm here on behalf of our agreement, with the 10 Dons. His eyes narrowed, their darkness suddenly deep and intense. As Secretary General, Clinda had no right to speak to him as an equal. You. Clinda was enraged. He was cunning and ambitious, how else could he survive in the underworld? Since rising to this post, people had groveled at his feet. But today, he stole a glance at Pingla, who remained still and detached, then cursed the 10 Dons for limiting his actions to only life-threatening situations. Mr. Li, shall we begin now? Came Krilo's smooth baritone. Frustrated, Clinda finally nodded. Yes. Since the 10 Dons have approved the deal, you only need to sign this contract. He pulled a document from his bag and handed it over. Krilo read it carefully, signed it, and returned it. Please extend my regards to my partners. And Mr. Li, perhaps one day we'll do business ourselves. The future is unpredictable, after all. He smiled with elegance, rose, and left. Knight, noting Clinda's stunned expression, curled his lips in amusement and followed. Captain. Knight. You're back. Even from a distance, Pakinota spotted them in the dark and her usual sternness softened. Hello, Pakinota. Where is everyone? Krilo asked with a light smile. Pakinota's face turned faintly red. They're all inside. But it looks like Uvogin caused some trouble. Oh? Really? Krilo raised a brow and entered the villa, their temporary city edge base. Hi, Pakinota, you're looking more beautiful than ever, Knight teased with a grin. Pakinota turned away without replying, following Krilo. Knight shrugged, women with feelings were never easy to charm. Inside, Maki sat in a corner knitting. Benolanov was examining an ancient incense burner. Phaeton was absent, clearly lost in his torture room with his latest acquisitions. On a side table sat Krilo's collected artifacts, though one porcelain bottle lay shattered on the floor, it had likely been his favorite. Knight smirked, turned, and headed upstairs. This guy Uvogin really needs to learn restraint. Once in his room, Knight turned on his computer and logged into his usual chat room. A new message awaited. I found the info you wanted. But some details aren't safe to send online. Finally. Knight typed, let's meet in person. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., at 30 Cafe, right side of 20 Square in 20 City. Okay, he replied, then shut the laptop. Good news, at last. And with Krilo focused on dealing with Uvogin, he'd finally get a chance to sleep. Time, 2 p.m. An unrecognizable Knight sat at a wallside table in the cafe, sipping milk tea. The meeting time approached, but the Zoldyck family's second son hadn't arrived. He was using one of his 3 hunter licenses, this one tied to the alias Vanagu, a ruins hunter. He'd met the Zoldyck second son, Miluki, online. Knight had multiple licenses, every few years he'd acquire new identities for concealment and efficiency, rotating them to access different parts of the hunter site. One was even a 2-star license thanks to the troops' travels. Ring ring, a call came in from an unknown number. Before he could answer, someone silently slipped into the seat across from him. Knight's pupils narrowed, but he looked up calmly. A very beautiful boy sat before him. Though with long hair and delicate features, the musculature and Adam's apple betrayed his true gender. Are you Ruins Hunter Vanagu? I'm Illumi Zoldyck. I'm here for the exchange. His voice was mechanical, eyes void of emotion, like still water. He stared directly at Knight. It was him. Knight would never forget those eyes. Over the years, the Zoldyck family's eldest son had only become more terrifying. Chapter 47. And his eyes became even emptier. However, Knight immediately tensed and demanded warily, "Why is it you? I remember the person I contacted was named Maluki, wasn't it? Illumi's blank, mechanical eyes blinked slowly. He accepted a private commission without authorization. He's currently in solitary confinement and cannot leave. So I've come to complete the transaction. Knight stared at Illumi suspiciously, clearly not convinced yet. Don't worry, Illumi said quickly upon seeing Knight's hesitation. Even though Maluki took a private job, it's now been absorbed into the family's mission structure. You can rest assured the task will be completed reliably. Naturally, confidentiality is also guaranteed. Knight feigned partial trust and nodded. If your guarantee holds, I don't mind completing the trade with you. But I already negotiated the fee with Maluki, and I'm not increasing it. A flicker of emotion passed through Illumi's eyes, but he quickly returned to his blank stare. Of course. It was Maluki's error. I'll settle the difference with him. He produced a business card and held it out with both hands. This is my card. If you ever require anything else, you can contact me directly. I offer a 10% discount on assassinations. Other commissions depend on the details. His gaze, deep and vacant like a black hole, bored into Night. Its chilling detachment could drive a lesser man mad. Okay. Knight nodded with a dry chuckle. The Zoldyck family really was something else. Clutching the thick file of information, Knight first found a quiet place to read, then verified the details through several secure channels before returning to the Phantom Troops base. Knight, you're back. Finks was the first to greet him, bored out of his mind and playing with an ancient crown on the staircase to the second floor, probably a memento from some past mission. Yeah, just wrapped something up, Knight replied with a grin. Hey, where's the captain? I've got what he asked for. He's probably in the study, Finks shrugged. You know Krullo, always reading. Right, I'll go find him. Knight winked and whispered, Finks, get ready. We're making a big move. A big move? Finks tossed the crown upward and caught it with a crushing grip, the force cracking the metal and dislodging a few gems. So you found the Korta clan's location? Krullo asked with a faint smile, eyes on the documents. Yes, Captain, Knight replied with a fox-like grin. All ready. When do we strike? Krullo chuckled and walked over. I remember reading about a Korta tradition, lighting a bonfire on Midsummer Night to bless the coming year. Why don't we act that night? He leaned in, voice low near Knight's cheek. As you wish, Captain. A flash of fierceness crossed Knight's eyes before vanishing. Krullo had never found the Scarlet Eyes all that impressive. A year ago, he saw a pair preserved in formalin in a partner's private gallery. Faded and dulled, they looked like cheap red glass beads. Krullo had lost interest immediately. Preserved organic matter didn't shine like cut gems. Still, human organ collectors prized them, and the eyes of the Korta clan were rare and valuable. The men were natural warriors, and those trained in Nen were formidable. As a result, few Scarlet Eyes were available on the black market, driving up their price. Even the underworld and the Hunter Association had started to covet them. Captain, did I hear that right? We're not just collecting all the Scarlet Eyes, we're handing over survivors to the Hunter Association? Uvogin exclaimed. Ah, Krullo said casually, the association wants to research the origin of the Scarlet Eyes. That's part of the deal we made with the underworld to carry out this massacre. So when the time comes, leave a few of the young ones alive. Kill the rest. Yes. Leguso, the Korta clan's hidden retreat, lay across the forest, isolated from the world. The clan, long aware of the danger their eyes posed, lived in seclusion, cut off from outsiders. They were a deeply spiritual people, believing their bodies and souls were divine gifts. Each year, on Midsummer Night, they held a sacred ceremony, bonfires, livestock offerings, prayers for health and good harvests. This year would be their last. Only 50 or 60 Korta remained. A few were Nen users. Using Zetsu, Knight easily infiltrated their village, controlling a respected elder. He brought the man to Pakanoda, who read his memories. Knight then used the elder to gather all the villagers for the festival. And then, the slaughter began. All adults were killed. Their eyes were gouged out and sealed in jars filled with preservatives. 4 or 5 children were knocked unconscious and stuffed into sacks. Afterward, the village was set ablaze, sins buried under flame. Knight walked leisurely across the blood-soaked earth, smiling faintly as his comrades executed the final survivors. The firelight reddened his face. One dying Kurta clutched Knight's ankle, blood-red eyes burning with defiance. You. Why? Knight smiled, eyes gleaming. Ever hear the saying, he who possesses treasure invites his own death? No? I suppose mountain folk like you wouldn't know ancient parables. But hey, you're weak. So even if you die, you should be able to reincarnate without regrets, right? The man's voice cut off. A stomp to the throat crushed it. His eyes dimmed, light extinguished. When the last scream faded, Knight returned to Kurlo and said cheerfully, "It's done, Captain." Still blood-streaked, he grinned wickedly. Kurlo paused, then said calmly, "Of course, Knight. Call everyone back." The golden-haired spider nodded eagerly, running off to gather the others. He didn't notice the dark glint in Kurlo's eyes as he turned. Yes, this version of Knight intrigued him. Gold and crimson suited each other. Even behind the disguise, that smiling face was magnetic. If he wanted Knight, he'd have to be patient. But it would be worth it. The phantom troop left as quickly as they had come, wiping out a village in one night. Only ashes and corpses remained. Then, a sudden sound of running footsteps. Someone raced from the forest's edge, screaming as they reached the ruins. Kurlo kept 2 pairs of scarlet eyes in storage, waiting for their value to appreciate. The rest were handed over to the gang as promised. Chapter 48. The surviving Kurta children were sent by Knight to a research institute affiliated with the Hunter Association. The one-star relic hunter who received them questioned Knight in detail about the route to Laguso, the Kurta settlement, before formally completing the handover. Days later, the news of the Kurta clan's massacre at the hands of the Phantom Troop spread across the world. Their bounty levels were raised to A rank. "Is this what they call burning bridges, Captain?" Uvagin snarled, crushing the newspaper in his hands. "Humph, neither side's clean." Shizuku snorted coldly, her normally blank expression hardening. Pakanoda glanced at Kurlo, who remained perfectly calm. She asked hesitantly, "Captain, what's our next move?" Without looking up from his book, Kurlo asked, "Knight, how's your research progressing?" Knight gave a crooked smile. "The vice-chairman of the Hunter Association who liaised with us has been demoted to a regular staffer for failing to oversee the situation. As for the Kurta survivors, they're still at the research facility. We can't confirm the details, but it's clear the association won't let them live. After all, they're the ones who officially declared the clan's extinction." He shut his laptop. "And since yesterday, we've lost all contact with the underworld group. Looks like they've decided to accept the Hunter Association's attempt to shift all blame onto us." "Is that so?" "Things inside the Hunter Association are unstable too." Kurlo mused. "Let's return to Meteor City first. Knight, keep in touch with Leo. Agitate internal strife in the association through him. If necessary, threaten him with leverage he can't refuse." Leo was the ousted vice-chairman of the Hunter Association. Though removed, his spy network remained formidable. As for the underworld, Kurlo smirked coldly. "There's no need to rush. We shouldn't take on 2 giants at once. They're just following the tide. Frankly, I'd probably do the same. Once we return to Meteor City, I'll use the Elders' Council to cause them some minor issues." Though black aura radiated from him, Kurlo's deep blue eyes remained calm, and his steady tone quickly pacified the anxious troop. Knight gave Krolo a sidelong glance, sighed, and turned the laptop back on, ready to dive into another round of intelligence work. The Phantom Troop base was still in District 13 of Meteor City. Though they'd long operated outside, locals still avoided their territory. When they returned, they found only Shizuku, still small, sitting dazedly at the base entrance. Krolo ignored her, walking straight to his room. The others didn't acknowledge her either, she wasn't officially part of the troop yet. Only Franklin approached, patted her head gently, and brought her inside. Knight, watching, chuckled. Though Shizuku looked spaced out, her aura was already thick with attachment. Sure enough, the next day, Franklin had a private chat with Krolo, after which they jointly evaluated Shizuku's Nen ability, a strange vacuum cleaner-like conjuration that could suck up any non-living material per her command. "Shizuku," Krolo asked, covering his mouth in thought, "where do the things you vacuum go?" She tilted her head. "I don't know." Knight noticed Franklin sweating. They all realized Krolo coveted her ability, but Shizuku, being forgetful, didn't recall how her power worked, what its restrictions were, or even where the items ended up. Cautious as always, Krolo decided to wait and named her a reserve member. With plans in motion, things progressed slowly. The Hunter Association was messy, and the troop lacked full control over Leo. They had to manipulate him subtly, use his resentment to purge his rivals, and gradually achieve their goals. The process was long and complex. The enhancers didn't make it easier, though those like Maki, Finks, and Shizuku were disciplined. Krolo still gave each specific assignments. Pakinoda and Knight, in charge of intelligence, remained mostly indoors. "Phew, finally, some fresh air," Knight exclaimed, stretching. Even the polluted air of Meteor City felt freeing after being locked in for so long. "Knight, fix your collar. We're about to meet someone important." Krolo reached over to smooth Knight's shirt, ignoring his surprised expression, then walked on as if nothing had happened. Knight stared at Krolo's back, puzzled. That gesture, was it reassurance? A test? Something else? He recalled how Krolo's jet-black eyes had lingered on him with unreadable intensity. There'd been no malice. In fact, the look had softened his own wariness. But Krolo said nothing beyond work for the entire journey. So Knight stuffed the thoughts away and resumed his casual conversation. Krolo, ever the predator, caught the flicker of emotion on his face, and his deep eyes grew even darker. They arrived at Dento Law, the town at the foot of Kukuru Mountain. "What a smug family," Knight snorted, eyeing the stream of tourist buses and curious onlookers heading to the Zoldyck estate. No doubt, this travel business belonged to the assassins themselves. Strength invites arrogance. As long as you're powerful enough, extravagance is acceptable, Krolo replied mildly. Of course, their code is also peculiar. He meant the Zoldyck rule of never killing outside contract terms. Krolo, who believed in wiping out witnesses, saw it as flawed. Knight, however, viewed it differently. That policy was what established the Zoldyck family's credibility. Greedy though they appeared, clients valued their reliability. They never harmed non-targets. Their success rate made them worth every guinea. When in Rome, Krolo and Knight boarded the tourist bus like everyone else. At the mountain summit, a giant iron gate awaited. "That's the Zoldyck's testing gate," the tour guide chirped. "Only those who can open it are accepted as guests. Anyone who tries to force entry will die." Several tourists stepped up to try, each failed and retreated, embarrassed. Knight glanced sideways. "Captain, how many doors can you open?" Krolo raised an eyebrow. Chapter 49. "I don't know either," Knight replied with a shrug. The two walked toward the massive iron gate. The tour guide's voice trailed behind, "Two guests, we're departing." Knight spun and teased with a smile, "No need to wait on us, lovely lady." Complete with a playful wink. Krolo strolled up to the gate, hand extended, and effortlessly opened all 4 massive doors, as if they were light wood panels. Knight followed suit, measuring his hidden strength, and easily pushed them open as well. Beyond lay a dense forest and an endlessly winding road. "Wow, you guys are loaded," Knight exclaimed. Krolo walked alongside. The Zoldyck family purchased Kukulu Mountain centuries ago. From that first summit to today's estate, it's been an astronomical investment. The underworld gate keeps trespassers out, and traps and guards block half of them. Ultimately, only the Zoldyck family themselves can pass. He fell silent, watching a stern, middle-aged man approaching about 100 meters away. "Welcome. The master asked me to welcome you. I'm Wutong, butler of the Zoldyck family." Krolo offered a courteous smile. Perhaps due to their generosity, or their reputation, both Silva, current head, and Zeno Zoldyck, retired head, appeared to greet their visitors. Both men shared the same piercing gaze, the kind that could betray hidden intent even to neutral guests. Silva spoke first. "State your target. The Zoldyck family will execute the commission swiftly." "Direct, as expected." Knight sipped from the ornate royal teacup. He'd heard Zoldyck hospitality used tainted food and drink to test guests. He'd trained in antidotes for the past 2 years, and this would be the ultimate challenge. The tea's aroma was rich, but it turned sharp and bitter, twisting his gut. Yet Knight swallowed it all in one breath. His muscles tensed, or a steel hard beneath his clothes. Krolo remained composed, offering a polite smile toward Silva and Zeno. "Pleasure to meet you. I'm Krolo Lucifer, leader of the Phantom Troop, and this is my member, Knight. I've come for a few commissions, not urgent, but conditional ones." "Conditional?" Silva's interest sparked. "A mission with prerequisites. We can accept, but there's a 20% surcharge and 70% in advance. If conditions fail, deposit is non-refundable." "Agreed." Krolo produced a document folder and a blank card containing 500 million jin. "The list and conditions are inside. I await your confirmation." Author's note: in 1999, Mafia offered to kill the Phantom Troop at only 200 million yen per head, even with their A-rank bounty. So jin 500 million is reasonable. Silva passed the papers to his father, Zeno. His eyes narrowed as he reviewed them. Moments later, Zeno fixed Krolo with a razor-sharp gaze. "Good plan, but what about your safety?" Krolo answered calmly, "Then they're no longer our members." His smile unchanged. Silence fell. Knight's heart hammered and he steeled his mind with Nen. Decorations in the room rattled. 10 tense minutes passed. Finally, Zeno cracked a nod. "The Zoldyck family accepts. Conditions met, targets eliminated." "Thank you." Krolo stood, bowed to them, then motioned to Knight, and they departed. Outside, Krolo turned to the pale young man beside him. "Good performance." Knight managed a shaky smile. "Can't let them see my weak side." Krolo snorted softly. "Working with the Zoldycks is risky, they kill with coins. One moment allies, the next your undoing. To ensure they don't take jobs from us, we must show them we're fierce. As leader, I must seem powerful, logistics like you are expendable." Over the next 1.5 years, Krolo strengthened ties between the Phantom Troop and the Elders' Council. Provoked internal dissension in the Hunter Association via Leo. Walked away from some underworld deals and redistributed those benefits to the Elders, keeping balance. Ensured a secure haven for the troop in Meteor City. By 1996, hidden power equilibria were firmly in place. In Meteor City, personalities ran free, members pursued companions, external lovers, or casual flings. Female members, especially Shizuku, frequently sought overnight partners, though rarely for romance. But Shizuku made a mistake. One after-party, she returned with a complete makeover. Who was this new face? A slender, Red-haired figure in heels appeared in front of Shizuku, hips swaying. Why are you staring at me? Don't want to kill you, he teased as he ran a tongue across her lips. His silver-gray eyes held hunger and mockery. Shizuku recoiled to the far side of the room, sliding away from his playing cards. Oh, juicy apple not fully ripe yet, but ready to pick! Tilda the trickster laughed unnaturally, voice warped. Suddenly, several sharp gusts of aura attacked Shizuku. But she was a phantom troop member. Shizuku rolled across the floor, narrowly dodging, and reached out with her umbrella for defense. Chapter 50. Shizuku drew her dagger and slashed fiercely, cutting a deep wound in the red-haired man's arm. Oh, ha ha ha, he laughed, exhilarated, veins bulging, and Shizuku gasped as she noticed an erection through his loose pants. Oh my god. Slept with that pervert, she spat, launching more aggressive attacks. That's not enough, Big Apple. He taunted. He dodged, allowing the blade to graze his skin, spraying her in blood, his eyes glowing with uncontrolled excitement. Shizuku's usual expression was replaced by grim determination. She knew her skill wasn't enough to kill him, but she had to stop him, fast. Ability, Colorful Phantom. Activate, she cried. Several illusory copies of Shizuku appeared, surrounding the man and slashing, but none harmed him. Kuroro had called the technique useless, yet now it became her lifeline. Huh? No breakfast yet? I'm starving, Uvogin yelled from the base's first-floor living room early in the morning. It's Shizuku's turn to cook today, Franklin replied, gently patting Shizuku's hair as she stepped down the stairs. Maki came down next and said coldly, she didn't return last night. Then someone else cook. I can't wait, Uvogin shouted. Fine, go fetch Phaeton from his interrogations. Maki replied. That guy. Uvogin frowned, then perked up. Bang. 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 He pounded on the second-floor door. Night. Night. Get Phaeton to cook. Phaeton, fresh from kneeling in a corner, heard the ruckus inside. This was just typical impulsiveness from Night. Remembering a time he stomped around for days monitoring intel, Phaeton shook his head at such reckless leadership. Uvogin, quit it. Pakanoda came down, graceful and tall, her presence like a queen. She crossed her arms. Uvogin descended in disappointment. He, Finks jeered. Don't cry because you're hungry. Say that again. Uvogin lunged, but Finks sidestepped. Then white nen threads wrapped Uvogin, restraining him. Shizuku, stepping in, said sharply, no internal fights. At that moment, Kurlo entered, wearing a black coat lined in white fur. His face remained expressionless. Maki, tend to Shizuku, he ordered, noticing Night carrying someone limp in his arms. Night laid Shizuku on the table. She was still breathing, he explained. Maki knelt to examine her. 5 broken ribs, ruptured spleen, bruised lungs, shattered right leg and left hand, and over 50 wounds all over her body. She bled out, her nen is depleted. She looked to Kurlo. She used tricks to injure both him and herself. She can't be saved. Let her die and bury her, Kurlo said flatly, a reminder that even among Meteor City's outcasts, death was never mourned. Do we search out and kill whoever did this? Uvogin asked, brandishing his sword. Don't rush, Kurlo replied. If this was against the tribe, we'll fight back. If it was personal, then, as per our regulations, we'll invite the killer in. Members never betrayed one another, or meddled in private affairs. If Shizuku was killed due to a private matter, she was weak and deserved it. At that moment, outside where Night found Shizuku, the red-haired clown started chuckling, brandishing an ace of hearts. Rescued already? I can't wait to find your Big Apple. Then he vanished. 3 days later, Phaeton became the next victim. He returned from a food run, blood-soaked and empty-handed. He headed straight to his torture room, ignoring Night's questions, until Krilo interrogated him directly. Maki later confirmed, his wounds match Shizuku's. Same attacker. A red-haired clown? Krilo narrowed his eyes. No such telekinetic exists within the Elders' Council, or in Meteor City before. Who is he? What's he after? Knight, find information on him now, Krilo demanded. Yes, Captain, Knight snapped to attention and raced upstairs. That night, Knight returned with a folder. He's called Hisoka. He came to Meteor City about a month ago. Extremely powerful, few survive a direct fight with him. Unaligned. We know he enjoys dueling strong opponents, he seems mercurial. If ignored, he doesn't chase, but if slighted. He paused. Bartender says he knows alcohol and coffee brands, he must come from a wealthy family. But why Meteor City? Maybe he's here to find worthy foes. Krilo covered his mouth, swirling his drink. Finally, he said, Knight, contact him. If you can, kill him. Yes, Captain. Knight blinked, then prepared to leave. Wait, Krilo called softly. Knight turned. Anything else? Krilo closed his eyes and added quietly, be careful. Don't force things. Knight nodded. Understood, I'll handle it. The door closed. Krilo remained alone, so silent even a pin would sound. Darkness and power radiated from him as he gently stroked his now unclenched fist, the hand of a hero, open and vulnerable.